I have a sweet at the end of the world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501 Review of Agents. The 10-minute review ended with a round of applause. When ZHUU walked towards the 10 suitcases filled with banknotes, she felt that her steps were a little light. The staff of Xinghuan Trading who were responsible for distributing the money kindly returned the travel bags that were confiscated when they came to the island, to make it easier for them to pack the bundles of US dollars. Looking at the travel bags that were stuffed full, ZHUU felt an indescribable feeling in her heart when she stood at the door of the cabin. When she boarded the plane, she imagined living a luxurious and exciting life like 007 in the movie. However, when she was forced to board the ship bound for the training base, reality crushed her fantasy of a good life in the future. But now, carrying this bag of banknotes, boarding the ship again, to return to civilized society, her heart was a little empty. What are you thinking about? The blonde and blue-eyed Bernice walked to her side and put her hand on her friend's shoulder. I don't know either. ZHUU shook her head, her pretty face full of confusion. Although at the beginning, I felt pain and despair about this hellish life, and spent days and days waiting for the day to leave. But when this day comes, I always feel a little empty in my heart. Congratulations, you have graduated. Bernice smiled optimistically. ZHUU looked at her friend in confusion. Bernice shrugged and replied, when I was in college, our state organized an activity to participate in military training. At the end of the military training, our instructor said this to me. Is that so? ZHUU showed a relieved smile on her face. Bernice laughed and patted her good friend's shoulder vigorously. Don't think too much. It's not good for girls to be too shy. Think about the nostalgia. When you are old, you should think about how to spend this huge amount of money now. As she said, Bernice slyly patted her backpack. That's true. Anyway, let's send some money back home first, or just bring my family over. After all, I didn't say anything when I left, and they must be worried. ZHUU said thoughtfully. You Orientals are really troublesome. My mother asked me to get out when I was 18. Bernice looked at her good friend speechlessly. In addition to the two of them, the new agents on the ship were also happily chatting with friends they met during training. They were planning how to spend this huge amount of money and how to spend this 10-day vacation. At this moment, the layout of the cabin was completely different from when they came. The spacious space was filled with sumptuous dishes and champagne, and the atmosphere was as cheerful as a party. It was like a graduation ceremony. After all the agents boarded the ship, Jiang Chen smiled and said to the female instructors who were standing there stupidly, why are you still standing there? You also have a share. Waking up from their daze, the 6 female instructors suppressed their ecstasy and walked over excitedly and were divided into $100,000 in order. After everyone boarded the ship, Jiang Chen signaled the captain to sail directly and take everyone to Xinjiao Island. After arriving at Xinjiao Island, the civilian staff of the new National Security Bureau will handle their documents, distribute equipment, and arrange positions for them. After 80 days of hustle and bustle, this uninhabited island finally returned to tranquility. Jiang Chen looked at the girl he hadn't seen for a long time and saw that the girl was also looking at him. The dark brown hair reflected the intoxicating dimness under the light of the setting sun, and the military green shirt outlined the beautiful shape of her chest. What Jiang Chen couldn't control the most was the azure blue pupils. It seemed to be able to speak, and it was telling of passion and warmth. Without too many words, Jiang Chen stepped forward and hugged her. As she screamed in a low voice, he fell with her into the muddy sand of the training ground. Feeling the coldness of the fine sand and sea water behind her, and the strength pressing in front of her, Aisha glanced at the wooden platform where she stood during training in the past with a little shyness, and whispered, no, not here. Every day she watched the trained agents crawling through the mud, but she never thought that one day she would also fall here. Don't you think it's exciting? In the place where you trained them so majestically, Jiang Chen said with a wicked smile, biting Aisha's ear. 2 blushes floated on her cheeks. but thinking that there was no one on this island, Aisha's little hand pushing Jiang Chen gradually softened, and she muttered softly, "It's not majestic. The ship has left. How can we go back?" I arranged a helicopter. Jiang Chen paused and blew into her jelly-like crystal earlobe. "The flight tomorrow morning." "But, the back is too dirty." Aisha looked at the stain on her shoulder nervously. "It's okay. I'll help you wash it later. Isn't there a bathroom in the hotel in the middle of the island?" Looking at the shirt soaked by the seawater and the wet air, Jiang Chen could no longer control himself. Jiang Chen kissed Aisha without giving her a chance to resist. The next morning, the helicopter that was supposed to pick them up arrived as scheduled and landed on the helipad on top of the hotel. After boarding the helicopter, Aisha looked at the island that was gradually disappearing with some nostalgia. Jiang Chen noticed Aisha's gaze, gently squeezed her hand, and asked with a smile, "Are you reluctant to leave?" "I just miss it a little bit." Aisha raised a smile at the corner of her mouth. Those children, although they were very resistant at the beginning, a lot of things happened during the training, and they gradually grew up. Now they are much more reliable than they were 80 days ago. "Children? Many of them are older than you." Looking at Aisha's profile, Jiang Chen just smiled and complained in his heart, but did not say it out of place. "Will this place be idle in the future?" Aisha looked at Jiang Chen and asked. "It will be used as a training base for ghost agents, but I plan to let the active agents do the training, that is, your juniors." Jiang Chen stretched out his hand and rubbed her fluffy and slightly curly hair. "I can't bear to see you leave me for so long." The cold and pretty face raised a heart-touching arc. Aisha rested her head on Jiang Chen's shoulder like a little bird, stretched out her fingers and gently wrote and drew on Jiang Chen's legs. "What are you writing?" Jiang Chen hugged her slender shoulders and smiled. "Spell," Aisha said softly with her thin lips slightly opened. "Can I know what the spell is, Miss Witch?" Jiang Chen joked. "I dedicate my soul to you, and wish to be by your side forever, the spell of my hometown." Listening to the heart-touching words in his ears, Jiang Chen leaned over slightly and kissed her white forehead gently. "Thank you. This is the most beautiful gift I have ever received." Aisha buried her shy face in Jiang Chen's shoulder and closed her long eyelashes happily. The longing she had felt for days was finally filled. She felt that the desire in her heart was being filled little by little. In the morning light, the helicopter gradually disappeared at the edge of the skyline. Chapter 502 Modified Lamborghini. With the completion of the ghost agent training, the team of the new country's National Security Bureau has finally been enriched. During the training, Aisha carefully summarized the personality traits and expertise of each agent. Those with strong organizational skills were promoted to ministers. Those with strong observation skills served as counterintelligence personnel or bodyguards of important persons. And those with strong action skills were sent overseas to collect intelligence. These 110 agents are like a large net spread out, infiltrating every corner of new country and extending its tentacles overseas. It is like 110 pairs of eyes, monitoring the conspiracy and spying in every corner of new country. When the two returned to Koro Island from the training island, it was almost 11 o'clock. As soon as she put the gift in the living room, Aisha trotted into the kitchen. The sound of water splashed, and Jiang Chen knew from the sound that she was washing the dusty kitchen utensils. Since Aisha left, Jiang Chen basically never cooked at home. Every day, he either went out to eat or went to the apocalypse to eat. Naturally, the kitchen was idle. Soon, the sound of the range hood sounded, and the sound of cutting vegetables came from the kitchen. Looking at the petite figure swaying behind the frosted glass, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. How to describe this feeling? A short separation is better than a new marriage? Although Aisha has always made him feel like a newlywed wife, it has been a long time since I tasted Aisha's cooking skills. When I ate the delicious food again, Jiang Chen almost ate his tongue. Aisha's cooking style is completely different from Yao's. Because of the low temperature in the apocalypse, Yao is better at stewing and hot pot. Aisha's cooking style is a combination of Chinese and Western flavors, such as cutting black pepper steak into thin strips and mixing it with green peppers for frying. But no matter which method is used, it is undoubtedly delicious. If it weren't for the injection of genetic drugs, which made his digestion and metabolism abilities different from those of ordinary people, Jiang Chen was really worried that he would have a beer belly. With his elbows on the table, Aisha couldn't help but smile happily as he watched his beloved wolf down the food he cooked. "Aren't you hungry?" Jiang Chen asked curiously when he noticed that Aisha hadn't touched her chopsticks. Aisha blinked her blue eyes with a smile on her lips. "Well, I feel like I haven't seen you for a long time. I want to see you for a while longer." After lunch, Jiang Chen helped Aisha put away the dishes and chopsticks in the kitchen and put them in the dishwasher. After putting the clothes he changed yesterday into the washing machine, the two of them picked up the cleaning tools together and cleaned up the dust in the villa. Although Aisha insisted on cleaning by herself at the beginning, Jiang Chen still insisted on picking up the broom to help. He had never helped with housework before, so how could he let her clean the whole villa alone? Besides, cleaning the house with your beloved is a very fun thing. After cleaning the house, it was the turn of others. Jiang Chen carried Aisha, who was blushing, into the bathroom in a princess hug. The sound of water continued for more than 2 hours before it came to a halt in hesitation. Jiang Chen spent the whole day in leisure. The next morning, according to today's appointment, Jiang Chen was going to the presidential palace to meet Zhang Yaping. Yesterday afternoon, he had already called the presidential palace to make an appointment. President Zhang Yaping would squeeze out a morning from his schedule to meet with him. Jiang Chen brought Aisha to the garage and handed her the brand new car keys, saying with a smile, "Come and get familiar with our new car." Looking at the Lamborghini, Aisha looked at him in confusion. "Is there any difference between this and the previous one?" Jiang Chen smiled mysteriously. "The difference is huge. You'll know once you get in and take a look." Aisha walked forward doubtfully and reached out to the hood of the car, tapping it gently. For a moment, a look of surprise appeared on her face. The car shell has been completely replaced with a super plastic steel shell and repainted. The window glass has been replaced with organic bulletproof glass, which can withstand anti-material rifle fire. Except for the weight of the car being slightly increased by a few kilograms, the defense of this Lamborghini is already comparable to that of an armored vehicle. Walking to Aisha's side, Jiang Chen introduced with a smile. "Is this the technology over there?" Aisha murmured softly, stroking the car body. "That's right. In addition, there is a button under the steering wheel. When pressed, a thermal grenade will be fired from the spare pipe next to the exhaust pipe. Target locking can be done through the small TV on the car radio. Although it is a doomsday technology, it is actually not very technical. It's just a custom-made car shell replaced according to the size, and a grenade launcher is installed." Before the war, there were still many wealthy people who were keen on collecting heavily taxed fuel motorcycles. So when Jiang Chen took out this strange-looking Lamborghini to the repair shop in the 6th district, they didn't show any surprise. The whole set of modifications only cost 500 credit points, which can be said to be good value for money. If the trunk was not in the front and the body space was not enough, Jiang Chen would have planned to modify 2 Poison Python rocket launchers on the car for fun. As Natasha reminded him, since he is already in a high position, it is better to pay more attention to his own safety. Jiang Chen will not allow what happened on the Koro Island highway last time to happen again. Sitting in the modified Lamborghini, Aisha simply tried the car, turned around outside the garage, and then stopped steadily in front of Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen fastened his seatbelt, while Aisha started the car again. As far as Jiang Chen, the passenger, felt, the modified Lamborghini seemed to have not changed much, except that it was more stable than before. Soon, the car drove into the garage of the presidential palace. Under the guidance of the staff, Jiang Chen walked into Zhang Yaping's office. Seeing Jiang Chen, Zhang Yaping, who was sitting on the sofa, stood up and greeted him with a smile. "What would you like to drink?" "Thank you, coffee is fine," Jiang Chen said with a smile, and sat opposite Zhang Yaping. He was the only one in the whole country who had the honor of having the president make coffee himself. But it was not surprising that he was so enthusiastic. After all, Jiang Chen's future group and starring trade provided a total of 10,000 direct jobs for the country and indirectly provided no less than 40,000 jobs. Although the influx of foreigners has raised the cost of living for the locals in the short term, it has also made the locals a small fortune. Just looking at the booming industry on Anger Island and the growing tourism industry on the other 8 islands is enough to make the president very happy. Zhang Yaping returned to the sofa with 2 cups of coffee, placed the cups on the coffee table, and sat back on the sofa. How have you been recently? Jiang Chen asked with a smile, taking a sip of coffee. Very busy, but I feel good. The Philippines is busy with the growing independence movement in Morocco. Australia is ready to cooperate with us further in economic and trade cooperation, but we still have a small disagreement on the tariff issue. Our people and their people have been chattering about this in the past few days, but it's all in a friendly atmosphere. Crossing his fingers on his knees, Zhang Yaping said with a smile, so, what is the issue we are discussing today? Putting down the coffee cup, Jiang Chen smiled and said 2 words. Visit China. Visit China? Zhang Yaping frowned slightly, but with the current civil war in the Philippines intensifying, if we get too close to China, it may arouse the vigilance of the United States. Then both of us will visit together. Jiang Chen smiled. December is getting closer and closer. Whether it is for the smooth launch of the virtual reality helmet or the full opening of Singapore's tourism industry, a high-level diplomatic visit is imperative. As a representative of Singapore's entrepreneurs, Jiang Chen will go with the delegation. Chapter 503 Meeting at the Presidential Palace. Visit at the same time. Then what's the order? According to the distance, visit China first, then visit the United States. The time is arranged at the end of this year, and I will accompany you then. Jiang Chen said. At the end of December, after the US election in November? Zhang Yaping touched his chin and said, yes. Jiang Chen nodded. It should be feasible. After the election is over, and the US government completes the transition work, apply for a visit. Considering the response time, how about setting the specific time on December 25th? Zhang Yaping suggested. No problem. Jiang Chen nodded. Then what is the content of the visit? Zhang Yaping asked. Of course, it will focus on economic and trade cooperation, and promoting people-to-people exchanges. After all, maintaining absolute neutrality in international affairs is our basic national policy. You should be more familiar with diplomatic rhetoric than I am. Jiang Chen said with a smile. Okay, I will arrange for my assistant to help me arrange the schedule and then list the list of accompanying personnel. Zhang Yaping nodded. Then please. You're welcome. With Singapore's current economic growth rate, we do need to establish good diplomatic relations with these big countries. According to the schedule, we originally planned to launch a diplomatic visit at the beginning of next year, but now it's only 1 month earlier. Zhang Yaping smiled as he gently picked up the coffee cup and took a sip. At present Singapore's economy is transforming from a primitive agricultural economy to a tourism-based economy, supplemented by light industry. At the same time, the deep-sea mining technology of future mining has also delivered a large amount of excess molybdenum and manganese ore to the international market. The domestic market of Singapore alone is naturally unable to digest these resources. At this time, the president needs to act as a salesman and take a group of entrepreneurs to solicit business overseas. Generally, due to factors such as winning over and exporting influence, big countries often do not let visiting small countries return empty-handed. Is that all? Putting down the coffee cup, Zhang Yaping crossed his fingers again and asked with a pleasant face. There is one more thing. Jiang Chen paused and looked at him and said, I need to launch a satellite. Launch a satellite. Zhang Yaping was stunned because the topic was too jumpy. Yes, that is to say, I plan to build an aerospace technology center on an uninhabited island near the equator of new country for scientific research, rocket launches, meteorological observation and other purposes. Jiang Chen said seriously. Don't you consider renting rockets? For example, Russia seems to be very good at that, and you seem to have a good relationship with them. Zhang Yaping couldn't help but say. Renting rockets is not a long-term solution. I don't want the satellites launched by Starring Trade to be controlled by others forever. And for national security considerations, new country must also have the ability to launch satellites independently. Moreover, we are close to the equator and have a unique geographical advantage. If we don't use it, it would be a waste of natural resources. Jiang Chen said seriously. But launching a satellite is not as simple as you think. Zhang Yaping sighed and began to explain the trouble to Jiang Chen. First of all, according to convention, launching a rocket requires notifying the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, the International Maritime Organization, IMO, and the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, of the satellite launch plan. Secondly, because PANU had joined the Treaty on Principles governing the activities of states in the exploration and use of outer space, including the moon and other celestial bodies, commonly known as the Outer Space Treaty, PANU had the obligation to inform the United Nations of space launch activities. Although the regime changed, the new country inherited the UN seat of the former PANU regime, so in principle it also inherited this treaty. Just a notification? Then why don't you ask your secretary to write a few documents and submit them? Jiang Chen said. It's not that simple. Various international organizations will come to investigate a launch and confirm that we are launching a safe satellite, not an intercontinental missile. And it is foreseeable that the Philippines will protest against our launch plan and take political means to obstruct our launch plan in the name of national security. Zhang Yaping shook his head and said. Jiang Chen's mouth curled up with a sneer. Don't worry about it. They are busy with their own business. How can they worry about a launch plan? I will put the complete launch plan on your desk in 3 days. The launch project is for civilian communication satellites, which is in full compliance with international law. As for those international tour groups, they can inspect it as they please. Seeing Jiang Chen's firm attitude, Zhang Yaping sighed. Well, since you insist. But forgive me for asking directly, does Starring Trade have the ability to launch a rocket? That is not as simple as lighting a firecracker. Don't worry about it. I will solve this problem. Jiang Chen smiled. Not having it now does not mean not having it tomorrow. There are so many half-dead private aerospace companies in the United States. Isn't it enough to spend money to buy back all the people and equipment? The equipment that is restricted from leaving the country can be left there. Jiang Chen doesn't care about those backward things. Anyway, all he needs is a group of technicians who understand aerospace to be responsible for the launch operation and equipment maintenance. As for the rockets and satellites that need to be launched, he will get them from the end of the world and let those experts who have a foundation in this area familiarize themselves with the operating instructions of the equipment. The Real Aerospace Science and Technology Research Institute is not in the present world, but in the end of the world. Launching rockets is of great strategic and economic significance. Space rockets are the precursor technology of intercontinental missiles. It goes without saying that any country that has the ability to launch space rockets has the potential for global strikes, and having this ability is a deterrent to other countries. As for the economic field, from the establishment of an independent virtual reality network separated from submarine cables, to the construction of space elevators, to the development of lunar resources, all are inseparable from the most basic aerospace technology of launching rockets. Jiang Chen hopes that the technicians of the present world can gradually digest the aerospace technology from the end of the world. After all, he is not a scientist. Although he can easily bring things from the end of the world to the present world, digesting these cross-era technologies still depends on scientists in the present world. The sooner we start to reserve talents, the better. This will be a long-term investment. After finishing the coffee in the cup, Jiang Chen said goodbye to Zhang Yaping. When Jiang Chen opened the door, the chief of staff in a suit was about to enter. Jiang Chen smiled at the tall Chinese man and walked past him. His eyes lingered on Jiang Chen's back for a moment. The chief of staff put away his forced smile and walked into the president's office. Mr. President, is this really okay? What do you mean? My chief of staff. Zhang Yaping put the coffee cup on the table and smiled. Excuse me, from what I see, the person sitting in the president's seat is not you, but that man. Zhang Wei said, after taking a deep breath. What's wrong with that? At present, 80% of our new country's fiscal revenue is directly or indirectly related to his future group. This year's GDP growth rate is expected to exceed 100%, which will be a miracle in world history. Zhang Yaping said indifferently. But an economy monopolized by oligopolies is extremely dangerous. When necessary, they will even overthrow. Zhang Wei said a little excitedly. Mr. Zhang Wei, you have to know that this country was originally overthrown by them. Zhang Yaping glanced at Zhang Wei indifferently. Looking at the indifferent eyes, Zhang Wenyi couldn't help holding his breath. For a moment, he actually had a strange feeling about this familiar president. The person sitting in the president's seat is me, Mr. Zhang Wenyi. And as long as I'm so easy to talk to, I will always be the one sitting in this seat. And from what you have seen, compared with a year ago, has the people's living standard decreased or improved? Zhang Yaping said with a slight smile. Indeed, it has improved, a lot. Although he did not agree with Jiang Chen's use of the president as a puppet, Zhang Wenyi had to admit that it was Jiang Chen's huge investment that awakened the economy of the Panu Islands. From building apartment buildings, to improve the living environment of the islanders, to investing in infrastructure construction, Starring Trade has not done anything to harm the interests of the new country, but has done so many good things that you can't count them with two hands. That's enough. Zhang Yaping smiled. But Zhang Wenyi wanted to say something, but Zhang Yaping interrupted him unceremoniously. Mr. Zhang Wenyi, the reason why I hired you as my chief of staff is because of your PhD in economics from Harvard and your outstanding expertise in international relations, trade and other fields, not because of your ridiculous political sense and boring ambitions. This is not the White House, but the presidential palace of the new country. Do you understand what I mean? After a long while, Zhang Wenyi finally nodded with difficulty. I understand. So some things are not allowed to be mentioned again in the future, understand? I understand. Chapter 504 CIA Response. Virginia, CIA Headquarters. In the spacious director's office, a middle-aged white man was leaning on a computer chair, staring at the documents in his hand with a frown. Space program? What exactly is the future group planning? Naomi leaned on the desk, staring at the documents in her hand, and couldn't help saying, because of the heavy losses in the spy operation in China some time ago, former CIA Director John Brennan finally couldn't stand the pressure of public opinion and resigned, and Naomi Madden had the opportunity to take over. Although the authorities adjusted their strategies against the future group for various reasons, Jiang Chen's name has always been on the CIA's list of key concerns. From subverting the former Panu regime, to the Philippine fishing boat incident, to the recent immersive virtual reality technology in full swing, and the deep sea mining technology that has caused a lot of discussion in the mining industry. Behind this series of hot events, the name of that man can be vaguely seen. There is also intelligence that Jiang Chen is likely to be the mastermind behind the civil war in the Philippines, but because there is no evidence, the CIA can't do anything about them. Naomi's intuition tells her that this guy is a dangerous person. It's not because his existence endangers the national interests of the United States, but because of his ability to create miracles. There are so many mysteries about him that it reminds him of long-forgotten document. I don't know. The only thing that can be confirmed is that they have now spent $5 billion to acquire all the shares of two private aerospace technology companies on the verge of bankruptcy in our country, and held a board meeting to reorganize and merge the two companies, incorporate them into the aerospace project department of Starring Trading Company, and move them to the new country. The agent standing next to the man said slowly with his hands behind his back. Customs? Naomi did not move her eyes away from the documents in her hand. There are 11 pieces of equipment in the assets of the two aerospace technology companies that are listed in the restricted export items, but they did not go through customs, but directly sold these equipment to SpaceX at a low price. It seems that they don't intend to take those equipment at all, but only those technicians. Naomi sneered. Oh. Do they think that they can create a rocket from scratch just by getting a group of MIT graduates over there? Without that industrial production capacity, even a screw on the rocket can't be made. This is not a problem that can be solved by sending a few scientists. The more advanced the industry, the higher the requirements for the industrial base. And it often takes decades to build this industrial base. I don't know, just like we don't know where they got the deep sea mining equipment from. The agent shrugged. Naomi fell silent. Although he is not a technician, he is born in science and has some understanding of the difficulties of deep sea mining. The first one is a material problem. Few materials can withstand the pressure of 7,000 meters deep for a long time, let alone mining under such terrifying pressure. sometimes it is virtual reality, sometimes it is deep sea mining, and now they have reached out to aerospace. It seems that they have been laying out the most cutting edge fields at all costs. The cutting edge means risk, but it also means higher returns. The major shareholder of Future Group is a complete gambler, and a gambler who is not stingy with his chips. This point has almost reached a consensus among investors on Wall Street. Can you find a way to find out the source of their technology? Naomi asked in a deep voice. I have been arranging people to do this work, but there has been no effect so far. The agent showed a helpless expression on his face. At present, we can only speculate that they have a secret research institute. It may be underground, or disguised as another organization hidden somewhere in new country. I have to say that, although they are a bit careless in intelligence work, they are extremely cautious in confidentiality. Can I apply to send additional personnel to new country? It's difficult. Naomi shook her head. There are too many places that need people. The Future Group is interesting, but it is just a private enterprise after all. Although some people in Congress are interested in the technology they have, the White House hopes to win over new country and asks us to exercise a certain degree of restraint. Is the president not interested? Asked the agent. Let's put it this way. It's the energy giants, not the Nasdaq listed companies, that provide the president with campaign funds. Naomi said calmly, our focus is still on the Middle East and Eastern Europe. As for those new things, as long as they are not weapons of mass destruction, it's better to let those businessmen think about it themselves. Generally speaking, the CIA, which keeps its budget secrets, doesn't have to give the president face. Their old rival, the FBI, should be loyal to the White House. But because of the trick by the general staff last time in China, the CIA now has no confidence when facing Congress and the White House. The reason why John Brennan retired early is because he was not pleasing to both Congress and the White House. The self-willed spy action almost dragged the White House into a diplomatic quagmire. Fortunately, China did not protest against the previous incident, otherwise the United States would be caught in the second largest diplomatic scandal after the Bay of Pigs incident. Although Congress has no right to inquire about the use of the CIA's budget, it has the right to cut its funding, and in fact they are already doing it. Even if Naomi doesn't want to side with the president, he has to make a certain degree of compromise on the budget. Okay, damn politics. But what I want to say is that the new country has now established a national security department, and our work may be affected to a certain extent. If I can't get support, I can't guarantee that I can provide intelligence so steadily in the future. The agent sighed, spread his hands and said helplessly, then just pretend to keep an eye on their launch project. What I care more about is not the Future Group, but the little mouse we raised, which seems to be a little disobedient recently. Naomi said. Willy Club? The agent asked tentatively. Yes, intelligence shows that they seem to have received donations from unknown sources. They are not satisfied with staying in Ukraine, a small place, and have extended their tentacles to our European children. Recently, there is intelligence that they seem to have had some degree of contact with Jiang Chen. Naomi picked up another document and said lightly, you mean, Jiang Chen and Willy will have a connection? It shouldn't be. There shouldn't be a focus of interest between the two sides. No. If you insist, it's not that there is no focus. Naomi frowned, bit her thumb, and muttered to herself. A word suddenly appeared in his mind. Golden apple. To be honest, until the collapse of the Soviet Union, collecting intelligence on the Golden Apple has always been one of the CIA's work projects. But with the end of the Cold War, this work that has no clues has been gradually shelved. But does that thing really exist? The legendary prop that can communicate with the future. Then Naomi's brows relaxed, and she shook her head with a self-deprecating smile. How could that thing exist? It's just like the Nazi Arctic military base. Reality is not a novel. Chapter 505 Acquisition of Aerospace Company. The booming development of private aerospace has a big background. That is, the failure of the early space shuttle, and the end of the space race caused by the end of the Cold War. This storm led to the cancellation of a large number of important projects started in the United States in the 1980s, and the investment of aerospace giants was wasted, which greatly hit their enthusiasm. After the disarmament in the 1990s and the integration of the aerospace industry, the monopoly of giants such as Pratt & Whitney, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin is no longer comparable to that in the 1960s. They are also more sensitive to risks, so they are half-hearted about commercial launches and only favor defense business. Not to mention the high price. The RD-180 engine was originally invested by Americans. Just because the manufacturer was unwilling to spend money to build a new factory, it had to rely entirely on Russia for production. This is also the reason why Russia can be stubborn in the face of sanctions. The threat of terminating cooperation and cutting off food for the International Space Station has been staged more than once, and it has been tried and tested. Until the rise of private aerospace companies in recent years, this kind of innocuous threat has gradually become less effective. Facts have proved that industries dominated by bureaucrats have no future after all, and this is also reflected vividly in the aerospace industry. Take the famous private aerospace company SpaceX as an example. Its launch price has been reduced to an almost absurd level, only a fraction of the market price, and no country or company in the world can compete with it. These emerging companies have inherited a lot of research results from the aerospace giants of the old era, but they have not inherited any debts. Speaking of SpaceX's boss, Elon Musk, he is also a legendary figure, but his popularity in China is far less than that of Jobs. However, if you mention the earth-shaking things he has done, many people should have heard of them. For example, he co-founded the PayPal online payment mechanism, which is the most successful online payment method to date. It was later acquired by eBay, and he also earned his first pot of gold. For example, the most popular car in the past year, there is no doubt that he is also the boss of Tesla. Not only that, he invited 3 well-known entrepreneurs to co-found SpaceX, and made a long-term strategic goal of starting with space tourism, opening the era of privatization of space resources, and ultimately realizing the settlement of Mars. And the facts have proved that they are indeed at the forefront of the world in the field of aerospace. The Falcon rocket was born, and its thrust-to-value ratio of fuel to thrust weight, reached a terrifying 1:150. It replaced Russia's best result of 1:120, and became the world's most advanced rocket. What's even more enviable is that such a rocket is not only cheap to launch, but also reusable. The first stage rocket can hover at an altitude of 200 meters, and then fall vertically without damage. Finally, its engine is 3D printed. With so many advantages, its market competitiveness is unparalleled. At the same time, its relationship with NASA and the US Air Force can almost be described as close friends. Orders that come in like snowflakes have made Elon Musk rich. However, it is precisely because of its terrifying competitiveness that many small private aerospace companies in the United States are in a half-dead state. The most profitable defense orders are almost monopolized by SpaceX, and the profits from commercial satellite launches have been compressed to the extreme for various reasons. It is precisely because of this that Jiang Chen was able to buy 2 aerospace companies at a floor price of $5 billion for the organization, and enrich the talent team of the Aerospace Science and Technology Center, which is wholly owned by Starring Trade. Kerwin Burrow, former director and technical director of Mississippi Aerospace Technology Company, holds a doctorate from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. He participated in the early development of the Falcon rocket, and later resigned to return to his hometown to establish Mississippi Aerospace Technology Company. But it turns out that not all technicians can become businessmen like Gates and Jobs. After the investment failed, his company owed $500 million in debt and was on the verge of bankruptcy. Fortunately, Jiang Chen extended a helping hand in time so that he was able to save his life's work from being sold. Of course, capital is ruthless. The first thing Jiang Chen did after becoming the chairman was to sell off most of his company's assets at a low price, and at the same time, offered their company employees twice the original salary and work visas to Singapore. Do you know what you did? Those equipment are worth at least $200 million, and you sold them to my old employer at a 50% discount. Oh, God. If I were Mr. Musk, I might wake up laughing in my dream. As soon as he left the airport on Coral Island, Kerwin grabbed Jiang Chen and complained with spit. Mr. Musk won't wake up with a smile. Excuse me, SpaceX doesn't like your equipment. Coincidentally, I don't like it either. Jiang Chen said in a relaxed tone, while opening the car door for him. What do you mean? The outspoken Kerwin frowned immediately. Literally, believe me, when we get to the destination, you will agree with me. Jiang Chen sat in the co-pilot seat. Sitting in the back seat of the car, Kerwin glanced at the expressionless girl driving the car, then looked at Jiang Chen and asked nervously, does she have a driver's license? Hearing this, Aisha's mouth twitched. Jiang Chen was stunned and laughed. Don't worry, my worth should be more fearful of death than yours. Okay, I believe you, but I have to remind you that no matter how rich you are, some things can't be bought with money alone. I now have 5671 pages of technical drawings, but I can tell you responsibly that it is absolutely impossible to find a factory in this broken place that can turn my drawings into real things. Really? Then throw your drawings away. Jiang Chen said nonchalantly. Kelvin was stunned and frowned slightly. Sorry, what did you say? Nothing. I still say that I can understand that you are full of anxiety about the new workplace, but I hope you can stay calm, because we will soon see some shocking things. Well, the dock is in front. We have to change transportation. Kelvin glanced nonchalantly, said aha disapprovingly, and then stopped talking. Although Jiang Chen's attitude towards his company and his technology made him very dissatisfied, he had no reason to be at odds with his salary. If he had a choice, he would definitely not sell his life's work. Unfortunately, it was not the founder who owned the absolute equity of Mississippi Aerospace Technology Company, but the profit-seeking capitalists. Faced with the price offered by Jiang Chen, the other shareholders of the company offered their equity without any hesitation. After parking the car in the garage next to the dock, Aisha turned her head slightly and said to Jiang Chen in Chinese that Kerwin could not understand. He seems very dissatisfied with you. Of course, after all, I sold his 6 years of hard work and devalued his research results to nothing. Jiang Chen said to Aisha with a smile after opening the car door. After a pause, Jiang Chen turned to look at Kerwin, who was full of impatience, and said in English, okay, Mr. Kerwin, we can get on board. Kerwin spread his arms and walked towards the ship. Then is it okay to hire him as the technical director? Aisha looked at Jiang Chen in confusion. You are going to teach him something very important. Aisha knew more or less about Jiang Chen's secrets, so she was so worried. The technical director must be a person with strong technology, and I'm optimistic about his learning ability. I have always been very tolerant of talents. As for his rudeness, it is more out of his reserved and rigorous attitude towards technology, and has nothing to do with loyalty. As long as I can show him the technology that shocks him, help him realize his dream, and give him enough material rewards, he has no reason to be stingy with his loyalty. When saying this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but think of Jiang Lin. His intuition told him that they were the same kind of people. The confused expression on Aisha's face clearly showed that she didn't understand what Jiang Chen said, but based on her unfounded trust, she still nodded. Since you believe him, of course, if he betrays me, I'll leave it to you. Jiang Chen smiled. Aisha didn't say anything, but simply nodded. The betrayers will be dealt with by the ghost agents. No one can escape their sniping. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 506, Shocked Kerwin. There was only a pile of gravel on the bare island, and the beach formed by golden gravel continued to meander into the sea, alternating with the beautiful scenery of the seaside with deep green and azure blue. This island with only bare reefs and gravel is the southeasternmost island of the new country, located on the north side of the equator. The flat land and wide sandbar are its only advantages. The factory building standing in the center of the island has not been painted yet, and it is obviously built not long ago. At this moment, Jiang Chen's private yacht docked at the simple fisherman's wharf on the edge of the island. This wharf originally belonged to a fisherman in the new country. The honest fisherman didn't even know that the regime had changed until the people of Xinghuan Trading Company showed him the property certificate, and he realized that he had illegally occupied private land. However, Jiang Chen did not make things difficult for him and bought this simple wooden wharf and the nearby fishing ground from him for $10,000. So this wharf became the only building on this deserted island except for the factory building in the center of the island. Is this the headquarters of our company? Looking at the bare factory building, Kelvin's mouth twitched. He felt that he had been cheated by the contract. This was not going to work. It was like being exiled. Of course not. Before the office building is built, you will temporarily work in the Starring Trade headquarters building on Koro Island. Of course, your main task is to study the information I provide you. Aha, the information you provided to us. Kelvin raised his eyebrows, obviously disdaining Jiang Chen's statement. Jiang Chen just smiled slightly at Kelvin's arrogance without any explanation. We are here, let's get off the boat. Because there is no vegetation, the soil here has been exposed to sunlight for many years, and it looks fine and hot. Stepping on the sand outside the dock, Aisha, who was wearing thin-soled sandals, obviously felt uncomfortable. But she did not show her discomfort, just frowned slightly. However, this subtle change did not escape Jiang Chen's eyes. Why don't you go to the boat and rest for a while? Anyway, it's safe on this island, and you don't need to worry about anything happening to me. Noticing Aisha's discomfort, Jiang Chen whispered in her ear. Aisha's cheeks flushed slightly when she was seen through. After some hesitation, she stopped trying to be stubborn, nodded, and accepted Jiang Chen's concern frankly. Yeah. Looking at Aisha returning to the boat, Jiang Chen smiled, turned around and greeted Kelvin, and walked with him to the warehouse in the center of the island. Pushing open the door of the warehouse, Jiang Chen brushed away the dust in front of his nose, walked to the side of the warehouse, and opened the metal shutters. When the sun shone into the room, Kelvin noticed the rocket engine placed on the large square iron frame. The cylindrical main body and the bowl-shaped tail are slightly smaller than the main engine of SpaceX, which makes people wonder whether it can bear a rocket that is more than 10 times its size. What is this? Kelvin walked forward and tapped it with his fingers. Our M320 rocket engine. That is the technology I'm going to show you. Jiang Chen handed him a tablet computer with technical parameters and 3D concept map. This is the rocket engine that Jiang Lin showed to Jiang Chen last time at the Institute of Aerospace Science and Technology. It is also the normal-sized version of the Bifeng 76 pseudo-ballistic missile engine deployed by NAC in Shengxiang town. From a screw to a wire, this engine is completely made by 3D printing technology and costs 30,000 credit points. The propellant used in the rocket is made by Linling, and the cost per ton is about 1,000 credit points. However, because the materials can be transported from the real world, the actual cost of these things may be cheaper. Because of the emergence of space elevators, the working fluid propulsion rocket technology for aerospace purposes was eliminated at the end of the 21st century. So this RM320 rocket engine can be regarded as the most advanced manned space rocket in the wasteland in a sense. The engine shell made of advanced materials can withstand a high temperature of 10,000 degrees, and the pressure in the combustion chamber can reach 500 atmospheres. The most important thing is that the thrust-to-value ratio of the rocket built by this engine can even reach a terrifying 1:300. It is undoubtedly better than the 1:150 of SpaceX's Falcon rocket. This is simply nonsense. Such an engine is simply impossible to achieve with current technology. What about the materials? Ordinary engines cannot withstand such pressure and high temperature. How is this possible? Wait, what is the chemical formula of this rocket propellant? Kelvin frowned, and the expression on his face kept changing. Sometimes he shook his head, sometimes he was surprised, and sometimes his eyes were wide open. In the end, his expression was fixed on being dumbfounded. This is ridiculous. No. This is too genius. Muttering to himself, Kelvin's hand holding the tablet kept shaking. This will definitely work. No, it's only theoretically possible. But if it is realized, SpaceX's Falcon rocket will become a joke. But this is too ridiculous. Suddenly, he looked at Jiang Chen and enthusiastically grabbed Jiang Chen's shoulders. Please, can you introduce me to the designer of this rocket engine? He is a genius. I will convey your compliments, but I'm sorry that I cannot introduce him to you for the time being. Jiang Chen shook his head. Why? Are you worried that I will leak the secret? Don't worry, I will sign any confidentiality agreement, no matter how harsh it is. Please. I hope to ask him questions in person, Kerwin said excitedly. At this moment, there was no longer the contempt on his face when he just got off the ship. The design concept and technological innovation of this rocket engine deeply impressed him and shattered his pride in technology. No, please don't get me wrong. I trust your character very much. It's just that the designer of this rocket is currently working on a project related to the space shuttle and doesn't want to be disturbed by anyone. Well, you can understand that he is in a state of seclusion. I promise that, if there is a chance, I will definitely introduce him to you. As for your question, I will provide you with a detailed rocket design drawing, and you should be able to get the answer from it. If this still can't solve your confusion, I can convey your question for you. Jiang Chen said nonsense casually. Are you kidding? The designer of this rocket is not born yet. Where can you find it? In the future, when the jump bracelet can take people through time, just pull Jiang Lin over to make up the number. Wait, I have another question. Such a rocket engine cannot be completed with the industrial foundation of the new country. The manufacturing capacity of the United States is also not enough. Where did you make it? It's here. Jiang Chen smiled. Is it here? Kerwin was stunned. You should have heard of 3D printing technology. This rocket engine is made by an industrial grade 3D printer. Can a 3D printer print such a high strength material? And that industrial grade 3D printer? What kind of new term is that? Kerwin was completely shocked by the new technology and forgot to speak for a while. Seeing this, Jiang Chen coughed lightly and interrupted his thoughts. Okay, since you have finished reading it, then Mr. Kerwin, our trip today is over. It's time to go back. No. Let me stay here, please. Kerwin gently stroked the outer shell of the engine. His enthusiastic expression and movements were like stroking and touching the skin of his lover. Although he was very satisfied with the enthusiastic attitude of his scientists towards technology, Jiang Chen always felt that this movement was inexplicably disgusting, no matter how he looked at it. Mr. Kerwin, I have to remind you that there is nothing here. The Starring Trade Headquarters building has air conditioning and endless coffee, as well as a complete design drawing of this rocket engine. Even if you work there, Kerwin interrupted Jiang Chen's words very rudely and said unceremoniously. Just give me a tent, I'll sleep here. And bring those documents over for me, please. Jiang Chen suppressed his smile and nodded. If you insist. Chapter 507 Heading to Germany. Preparations for launching the rocket were in full swing. Kerwin studied the rocket drawings eagerly while coordinating the company's reorganization business remotely over the phone. The people from Starring Trade brought him tents, food and fresh water. Although the conditions on the deserted island were very difficult, the technician overcame these difficulties with his almost fanatical passion for aerospace. As for the 40 employees who were willing to transfer to the new country to work, they were placed on Koro Island by Jiang Chen. According to their different positions, they digested the rocket launch technology he brought from the end of the world in an orderly manner. Of course, he did not disclose the material manufacturing process used in the engine to anyone. Materials are the key issue that restricts the development of aerospace technology and are also the main advantage of the RM-320 rocket engine compared to modern engines. In other words, even if the drawings of the RM-320 rocket engine are leaked, the person who gets the drawings cannot imitate one according to the drawings. It's like you can't build a skyscraper with red bricks and wooden beams. If the most basic problems cannot be solved, no matter how advanced the technology is, it can only remain on the drawings. At the same time, Jiang Chen did not fall behind in the construction of hardware facilities. After Jiang Lin input the construction drawings of the rocket launch site, 20 engineering robots produced in the 6th block and hundreds of tons of building materials were brought to the current warehouse by Jiang Chen, and then transported to the deserted island that served as the aerospace technology center by ship. Although surprised by the engineering robots Jiang Chen took out, Kerwin did not ask much. On the one hand, because of the mismatch of majors, he did not know how difficult it was to make such an engineering robot that could automatically construct On the other hand, he knew very well that, even if he asked Jiang Chen, he would not tell him. In addition to building the rocket launch site, under the instruction of Jiang Chen, Xinghuan Trade deployed radar stations, drone terminals and a 20-person sentry post on the island, and included the uninhabited deserted island in the patrol range of the Sea Patrol ship, to ensure the safety of the launch center. As for the review documents required for launching commercial satellites, Jiang Chen also hired someone to complete the compilation, and handed them over to Zhang Yaping. In this way, time unknowingly came to the end of October. According to the agreement with Carmen Rothschild, Jiang Chen, who was invited, will go to Germany to participate in the Munich Auto Show held by automobile giants such as Daimler Group. Considering the cooperation between Futurman Technology and Daimler Group in the field of artificial intelligence, being invited to visit is a good thing for both parties. On the day the news was announced, the stock price of Daimler Group, which had been stable, rose by 4%. People speculated whether Daimler Group and Futurman Technology would join hands to carry out further cooperation in the field of artificial intelligence or even virtual reality. On the other hand, many international media are also full of curiosity about Jiang Chen, who has always kept a low profile in front of the media. The flight had just arrived in Berlin, and the door of Jiang Chen's plane had just been opened, when reporters carrying long guns and cannons swarmed around. Microphones with logos such as Reuters, Paris Daily, and Washington Post were also stuffed in. Such a pomp is not inferior to those international superstars. Aisha and 4 bodyguards from Starring Trade went to Germany with Jiang Chen this time. With her long brown hair tied behind her head, Aisha was wearing a black women's suit and carrying a black briefcase. She followed Jiang Chen 2 steps behind, dressed like a secretary. The media showed no less interest in the young female secretary who appeared behind Jiang Chen than Jiang Chen, because they could faintly smell the scent of gossip from the two of them. However, in contrast to the enthusiastic media, Aisha's reaction was very cold, as if those reporters did not exist at all, and she simply ignored all the flashes and cameras. As for Jiang Chen, he was also dressed in a suit and leather shoes at the moment, and he dismissed many media with a smile on his face. However, he ignored the tricky or meaningful questions. Mr. Jiang Chen, does your participation in the Munich Motor Show this time indicate that Future Group has developed an interest in the automobile manufacturing industry? In other words, does this mean that Future Group is sending a signal to the public that artificial intelligence will enter the automotive field? Regarding the immersive virtual reality helmets recently launched by Future Technology, can you ensure their safety? If someone uses it to instill abnormal content into the brain, or illegally steals intelligence from the user's brain, and this behavior cannot be supervised by traditional means, can you ensure that this behavior will not happen? Excuse me for such presumptuous speculation. After all, the brain is the last privacy of human beings. Will you carry out technical cooperation with other companies interested in virtual reality? Mr. Jiang Chen, a spokesperson for the International Science Council, said that this is an epoch-making technology that should be shared by all mankind in the world and should not be a means for a certain company to make private profits. Mr. Jiang Chen, according to the Wall Street Journal, your company has submitted an application to international organizations through the new government to launch commercial satellites. Does this mean that Future Group will enter the aerospace field? The Stanford University professor suggested that adding a protection measure to burn out the circuit in the Phantom helmet is an improper patent protection behavior, which violates the consumer protection law, because consumers who purchased the product have the right to. Jiang Chen stopped and looked at the young white reporter with curly hair. Please tell the professor to be careful with his wording. The Phantom helmet has not yet been officially released. Apart from the experience stores that have signed special agreements with us, there are only 2.5 million pre-sale helmets on the official website. In addition, I can tell you responsibly that, whether it is pre-sale or the official release at the end of the year, we will provide damage replacement and half-price exchange services for the product within a time limit. Moreover, we will definitely add a line to the replacement agreement. Any unauthorized disassembly will be regarded as a breach of contract, and the replacement agreement will be automatically terminated. We fully protect the legitimate rights and interests of consumers. The only requirement is that you don't disassemble our helmets at will. As for those colleagues who try to disassemble the helmets. I sincerely advise you to buy more and disassemble them. But I promise that you are doing useless work. Seeing Jiang Chen continue to move forward, the reporter couldn't help but get anxious and hurriedly stretched out the microphone to stop him, but Jiang Chen had already walked away. 4 sturdy bodyguards surrounded Jiang Chen and Aisha. Although they were not wearing mechanical exoskeletons at the moment, with the power of their genetic drugs, they were definitely not something that these small reporters could stop. These fly-like reporters surrounded Jiang Chen and others all the way to the airport gate. It was not until the Rothschild family came forward and took Jiang Chen and others to the welcoming motorcade that these reporters left without interest. Haha, we meet again, my old friend. Sitting in the back seat, Carmen smiled warmly when she saw Jiang Chen sitting in. Nice to meet you, Mr. Carmen. How have you been recently? Jiang Chen smiled as he sat in the back seat. Of course, thanks to your company's artificial intelligence program, it is tailor-made for our main control chip. The board of directors and partners are very much looking forward to the Mercedes-Benz S700 that we will launch at this auto show. There is no doubt that our product will become the darling of this auto show. Carmen grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Aisha, the bodyguard and personal secretary, sat in the passenger seat, and the other 4 bodyguards from Starring Trade sat in the front and back cars. It was tailor-made for you. Jiang Chen smiled at him. A $1 billion deal. Adding the Futureman Technology logo to the system startup screen for 1 second, and a $30 billion loan later. The Rothschild family played a big role in the rapid expansion of Futureman Group's industry. However, when they met today, Carmen did not mention the loan, and did not even ask about the operating status of the Future Group. Along the way, she just chatted with Jiang Chen about some hobbies. I wonder if you are interested in a private jet? With your current assets, you are fully capable of buying one. This will not only make travel more convenient, but also reduce a lot of unnecessary trouble. Carmen glanced at the interview car following behind with a teasing look. I will consider buying one. Is there any good brand you can recommend to me? Jiang Chen smiled. Mr. Andy Barford, the European manager of Gulfstream Aerospace, will also attend the Munich Auto Show in 2 days. I can introduce it to you. Their company's Gulfstream G650 is very good. I strongly recommend it. Whether it is performance or appearance, the G650 is very excellent compared to business jets of the same price. Carmen said vividly. Then I'll trouble you. Jiang Chen smiled. He had considered buying a private jet before, but because the focus of his work had been on the apocalypse some time ago, and there was no need to travel in the present world, he put this idea aside. Now that Carmen mentioned it, he just remembered this matter, so he took the opportunity to talk about it. You're welcome. I think Mr. Baffalt should also want to meet you. Carmen smiled. The person in charge of driving was Johnson, Carmen's bodyguard and driver, and a former Special Forces soldier of the French Foreign Legion. Every time Carmen travels, he will accompany her behind her. Although the Rothschild family is low-key enough, there are still many peeping eyes. Whether it is the kidnappers who are eyeing the ransom, or business opponents, or the suicide saints from Palestine. While turning the steering wheel, Johnson casually glanced at Aisha sitting in the co-pilot. For some reason, this girl, who looks nothing like a warrior, gave him a sense of danger. Not only this little girl, but also the other 4 bodyguards brought by Jiang Chen also gave him, a veteran, a similar illusion of danger. Before Aisha noticed, he calmly withdrew his gaze. What a hell? Cursing in his heart, Johnson focused on the road ahead. Chapter 508 Rothschild's Manor. After about an hour's drive, the convoy arrived at the Rothschild family's manor in Bavaria. It's not our way of hospitality to let guests stay in a hotel. This manor is our family's property. There won't be any reporters or media disturbing us here. I hope you like it. After getting off the car, Carmen said to Jiang Chen very politely. As expected of an old nobleman from the Napoleonic era, it's probably not enough to have money to buy such a magnificent manor in Germany, where land prices are expensive. From the classical decoration and the stone walls with the historical atmosphere, we can vaguely see the historical heritage of this mansion. It's as if this is not a manor, but a museum with a history of hundreds of years. The butler named Thaddeus took 4 bodyguards to the manor's annex, where the servants lived. Of course, the so-called servant's residence is only in a cultural sense, and the accommodation conditions there are no less than those of a star hotel. Originally, Aisha should have lived there, but the old housekeeper was very keen to see that her relationship with Jiang Chen was not as simple as it seemed, so he considerately arranged for the two to stay in the same room in the main building. The redwood floor of the room exuded a refreshing wood fragrance, the German aristocratic bed, and the decorative fireplace on the wall. The whole bedroom looked elegant and warm, as expected of an old aristocrat. Even the enjoyment was so classy. After seeing this room, Jiang Chen secretly moved his mind and decided to build a similar bedroom in his villa when he returned. As an Avo-rish, he had never been particular about taste and class. The maid of the manor had cleaned the room before the two arrived. After briefly explaining the location of the toilet and bathroom to Jiang Chen, she took the two to the dining room. The color of the dinner was not as elegant as imagined, but the taste and nutrition were impeccable. The red wine on the table was produced by Lafite Winery, a subsidiary of Rothschild. Although the year was unknown, it was not difficult to smell its high value from the mellow aroma. Speaking of which, the most impressive thing about the Rothschild family is probably the red wine and the bank. No one knows how rich they are, because they have written into the family motto that they will never disclose their property, and have implemented it to this day, even if they have given up the opportunity to go public to make money. They turned a deaf ear to the world's doubts about their decline, and disdained the exaggerations of novels such as Currency Wars. Perhaps this is the calmness of the old aristocrats. At the dinner table, Carmen and Jiang Chen had a good chat, but they didn't talk about business at all. Aisha was silent as always, saying nothing at the dinner table, concentrating on the lamb chops on the plate. After dinner, it was already late, and Carmen just politely wished Jiang Chen a good time, and then reminded him not to miss the banquet tomorrow night, and then left in the car. This manor seemed to be only used by the Rothschild family to entertain distinguished guests. As a member of the family, he did not live here. After taking a bath in the marble bathroom, Jiang Chen returned to the bedroom. Aisha had returned before him, and was now sitting on the bed fiddling with a small black pen-shaped electronic device. Jiang Chen would naturally recognize this thing, an anti-eavesdropping detection device, a gadget sold in most weapon stores in Block 6. Wiping the water stains on his temples with the scarf on his shoulders, Jiang Chen smiled and asked Aisha, "Did you find it?" Aisha shook her head. "No. It seems that the Rothschild family is quite sincere to us." Jiang Chen nodded with satisfaction. What he didn't know was that Carmen had tried to eavesdrop on him. At the beginning of the cooperation, the USB flash drive he gave Jiang Chen contained a microlocator. However, because it was thrown into the storage space, the thing didn't work at all. After discovering that the signal of the locator disappeared strangely, Carmen learned her lesson and stopped doing these little tricks that could not escape people's eyes. Sitting next to Aisha, smelling the fragrance of jasmine, Jiang Chen knew that she had taken a bath. Putting his hand on her slender waist, Jiang Chen whispered in her ear, "Did you bring the itinerary?" The ears were a little itchy from the hot air, and her cheeks were flushed with the bath. Aisha nodded shyly. "Yes, it's in the bag." As she said that, she was about to get up to help Jiang Chen get the briefcase on the table, but the big hand on her waist had no intention of letting go. Turning back, Aisha met the naughty eyes. "You can look at it tomorrow, or you can rest early today." Jiang Chen smiled evilly and said with his right hand very dishonestly. There was no conversation all night. The next morning, because he rested early, Jiang Chen got up early. After waking up Aisha, who was sleeping like a cat, they went to the dining room to have breakfast after a simple wash. Afterwards, Aisha brought Jiang Chen the schedule. On the first day, they arrived in Germany without any special arrangements. On the second day, they had free time during the day and attended a banquet hosted by Carmen Rothschild at the Bavarian Manor in the evening. On the third day, they attended the Munich Auto Show. The fourth day is free time. The fifth day is back to new country. The 5-day schedule is not full. It is a rare opportunity to come here, so Jiang Chen will not miss the opportunity to visit this strange and charming country. I heard that Bavaria has a famous attraction, Neuschwanstein Castle, which is the prototype of Disney Castle. It is a rare opportunity, so Jiang Chen plans to take Aisha to see it. No one can say for sure whether these wonders of human civilization can be seen again one day in the future. But before leaving the manor, Jiang Chen plans to take Aisha to visit the attractions in front of him. This is the Rothschild Manor in Bavaria. Holding the soft little hand, walking on the marble brick road, feeling the cool morning breeze blowing in the face, Jiang Chen squinted his eyes and looked at the lush green pine forest. Behind the pine forest is a wide lake. Just on the lakeshore not far away, Jiang Chen accidentally caught a glimpse of a cabin leaning against the woods and a sailboat standing in front of the cabin. The sailboat didn't look very finely made, but from the symmetrical proportions and smooth curved surfaces on both sides, Jiang Chen could still see an old man in a fur coat holding a saw, concentrating on a piece of wood. Shipbuilding? Out of curiosity, Jiang Chen looked at him a few more times. As if noticing Jiang Chen's gaze, the old man raised his hand to greet the two in a friendly manner, and then ignored them and continued to concentrate on handling the matter at hand. Retracting his hand raised to greet, Jiang Chen muttered softly, "A servant of the Rothschild family?" Shaking his head, he didn't take the old man to heart anymore and continued to walk forward along the marble brick road holding Aisha's hand. But what Jiang Chen didn't know was that before he disappeared from the old man's sight, the old man's eyes had been staring at his back. The slightly frowned brows seemed to be thinking about something. Chapter 509 Dinner. When leaving the manor, Butler Thaddeus prepared a black Mercedes-Benz for the two of them, and they quietly left through the side door of the manor without alerting any media reporters. Since it was a private trip, Jiang Chen did not bring the 4 bodyguards from Starring Trade. On the one hand, it was out of confidence in his own strength, and on the other hand, he felt that it was a bit of a downer to follow 4 suited men when traveling. Throughout the day, Jiang Chen took Aisha to visit the scenic spots in Bavaria. From Neuschwanstein Castle to the Alpine Lake, the two left their footprints along the way. It was not until the sky turned yellow that the two of them ended today's trip with a camera full of photos. Looking at the tired and excited blush on the girl's cheeks, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile from the bottom of his heart. "Did you have a good time today?" "Yeah." Aisha nodded briskly. On her cold and pretty face, she rarely showed the vitality that she should have at her age. With a curved mouth, Jiang Chen held the steering wheel and drove the car onto the country road. Looking around, all you can see is a golden wheat wave. The skyline connects the dim sunset and the mountains, which look magnificent and poetic under the flaming clouds. Speaking of which, it is already late autumn. If it were the wasteland, it would probably be snowing at this moment. Looking at this scene, Jiang Chen couldn't help but sigh. Aisha, who was sitting in the co-pilot seat, raised her camera and took a picture of this beautiful scene. Seeing that there was still time, Jiang Chen took a detour and continued along this country road. Suddenly, the road ahead opened up. At the end of the wheat wave, there was a small town with sparse lights, and where the jungle met, there was a small town isolated by iron nets. Rugged people gathered together, staring at the sky in a daze, or taking care of their pale and thin family members. At the gate of this refugee camp, more than a dozen staff and police surrounded several vans and distributed necessary drinking water and food to them. Aisha held the camera in her arms and looked at the isolation fence in the distance. Homeless people, or refugees. Most of them left their hometowns because of the war. Most of them came from Libya or Syria. Jiang Chen suddenly stopped talking. He suddenly realized that it was her hometown. It must be terrible to see people from her hometown displaced. Sighing, Jiang Chen did not comfort her and prepared to speed up to drive through this section of the road. Click. However, the girl raised the camera in her hand and left the scene in the camera. "Don't you feel, well, uncomfortable?" Jiang Chen considered the words. Aisha nodded, but then shook her head. "Thank you. HMM." Jiang Chen looked at Aisha in confusion. She lowered her head with a nostalgic smile on the corner of her mouth, and her slender index finger unconsciously rubbed the shutter of the camera. "If I hadn't met you, I might not even have been able to get to that place." Recalling the past, although she occasionally encountered danger, more often than not, she still felt the warmth of that home. He did not treat her rudely because of her identity and was always so gentle. So much so that sometimes she even forgot that memory. "What are you thinking about?" Jiang Chen grinned and used his right hand to ruffle her hair. Nothing. Shaking her head, Aisha held the camera in her arms with a faint smile on her face. The girl, who was gilded by the dusk, seemed to be holding a priceless treasure. It was almost 6 o'clock when they returned to Rothschild's manor. When the two arrived, butler Thaddeus was waiting at the door of the manor's side door. There was still an hour before the banquet started. Although Jiang Chen felt that he had plenty of time, the rigorous old butler did not seem to think so. The dresses for the banquet were prepared by Rothschild's people. Jiang Chen had not heard about the banquet before he came, so he did not bring a proper dress. As for Aisha, she went back to the guest room to rest. She seemed not very good at this kind of banquet. After being tossed around by several serious-looking maids for a long time, Jiang Chen finally appeared at the door of the venue before the banquet started. Well, not bad. It seems to suit you very well. Standing at the entrance of the venue, Carmen smiled and said to Jiang Chen, "Thank you." Jiang Chen smiled and went into the venue with him. The circular venue was decorated with golden splendor, and the dome of the venue was decorated with chandeliers as bright as diamonds. Celebrities from all walks of life gathered here, and ladies and celebrities chatted with each other, and waiters with champagne shuttled between various social circles. Those who were qualified to attend this dinner were mostly financial giants or industrial tycoons, or some European political leaders. Because he was outside the circle, Jiang Chen did not see a familiar face among these people. It was just that he didn't know if it was his illusion. But when he and Carmen walked into the hall of the venue, at least dozens of eyes fell on him intentionally or unintentionally. The Rothschild family is most proud of not the assets we have, but the connections we have. Many of the guests here are major shareholders of several listed companies with a market value of 100 billion euros, and many of them have served as president or vice president of a certain country, but the friendship between them is more or less related to us. The cooperation projects reached at such a banquet are in no way inferior to any international economic summit, and we hold such banquets every few months. You came at the right time. I can introduce you to some interesting people. Carmen showed her white teeth, smiled and opened her hands, welcoming the red-haired man who was walking towards him. Long time no see, Carmen, my old friend. Haha, old buddy, it's been a long time. Let me introduce you. This is Jiang Chen. Carmen introduced her old friend very skillfully. The red-haired man even showed a look of surprise and immediately smiled and stretched out his right hand. Nice to meet you, Mr. Jiang Chen. I'm very impressed by your company's Phantom helmet. But it is a pity that your arena experience server is only open to level 10 battles. I'm looking forward to the day when the game is officially launched. My name is Peter McLean. You can call me Peter. Holding Peter's hand and shaking it up and down, Jiang Chen also said with a smile, "Nice to meet you, Peter. I believe that, when that day comes, I will definitely not let you down." Peter McLean, chairman of the British Guardian Company, the second largest data backup equipment company in Europe, and an old enemy of IBM. Carmen introduced Jiang Chen in a joking tone. "Please don't make fun of me." Peter made a helpless expression. "Compared to these, why don't we have some champagne to liven up the atmosphere?" Affected by many factors such as language, European internet companies are congenitally underdeveloped. Although Guardian Company has a good life due to the support of British military orders, IBM has obviously no longer taken this old enemy, which cannot be called a rival, seriously. Good idea. Carmen laughed. For this dinner, I brought out the most fragrant red wine from the Bavarian winery. Please don't be polite. A row of crystal glasses were neatly displayed on the long table in the venue, and the waiter politely poured a glass of fragrant red wine for Jiang Chen. Just as Jiang Chen was thinking about whether to find a circle that looked useful to join, a middle-aged man with a beer belly took the initiative to walk towards him with a smile. There was also a young blonde woman beside him. "You must be Mr. Jiang Chen, am I right?" Chapter 510. For example, mature deep-sea mining technology. A shiny suit and leather shoes, with a slightly reflective forehead. The round face was full of wrinkles, but the smile was not annoying. As for the woman standing next to him, she had wavy blonde hair and a dark evening dress that set off her beautiful figure, which formed a sharp contrast with the man's bald head and beer belly. "Excuse me, who are you?" Jiang Chen looked at him and asked in confusion. "Luke Joyce, we are partners." Luke raised his glass with a smile and clinked glasses with Jiang Chen. Partner? Jiang Chen really didn't remember that he had this partner for a while. But Luke was very keen to notice the confusion in Jiang Chen's eyes and added with a smile. It seems that Mr. Jiang Chen doesn't like to study the shareholder structure of the partner. BHP Mining Group, I'm one of its shareholders. Earlier Future Group and BHP Mining Group signed an iron ore and aluminum ore import agreement. Although the Future Group later established Future Mining, which made a huge technological breakthrough in seabed mining technology, the manganese nodules mined from the seabed solved the iron ore needs of the Future Group, so the iron ore agreement with the BHP Group was terminated. However, in terms of aluminum ore, the Future Group still relies on imports from the BHP Group. Upon hearing this, Jiang Chen immediately showed a look of realization. It turns out to be Mr. Luke. Sorry, I'm disrespectful. Not caring that Jiang Chen did not recognize him, Luke smiled and continued to introduce his female companion to Jiang Chen. This is my daughter Melita Joyce. Nice to meet you, Mr. Jiang Chen. I'm a loyal fan of future technology. Melita smiled and stretched out her hand. Although a little surprised, Jiang Chen did not show it on his face. He just shook her hand politely and greeted her with a smile. Hello, Miss Melita. I'm honored that Futureman technology can satisfy you. How to say it? Jiang Chen's in a shock at this moment, is no less than someone pointing at an orc and an elf at the same time and telling him seriously that the two of them are actually father and daughter. Haha, my daughter is full of curiosity about your legendary experience. You young people can talk more if you have a chance. Luke frowned at Jiang Chen and said in a relaxed tone. Hearing this, Jiang Chen could not help but hear the hint in Luke's words. It was just a few words and he started to matchmake for his daughter, which really made him a little ashamed. Unfortunately, Jiang Chen was not interested in his daughter. There is no legendary experience, just good luck. Jiang Chen said modestly. Although it was just a humble remark, it was actually correct to say so. If it weren't for the ability to travel through time, he believed that he would not have been able to have his current status. Please don't say that, Mr. Jiang Chen. This will make 7 billion people feel frustrated, because here is a lucky person who can be nominated by Forbes' wealth list just by luck. Melita smiled with her bright red lips slightly pursed. Jiang Chen spread his hands to express his frustration that no one believed what he said, even though it was the truth. However, in the eyes of Luke and his daughter, this gesture became a self-mockery to ease the atmosphere. After a round of greetings, perhaps because she realized that Jiang Chen was not interested in her, Melita politely said goodbye to Jiang Chen, leaving time for the two who were ready to talk about business and walk to other circles. Luke was not surprised by his daughter's departure. Obviously, he also saw that Jiang Chen had no intention of doing so he did not force her, but continued to chat with Jiang Chen vividly. This Luke was very talkative, and the two talked about everything from sailing to golf. However, most of the time, it was Jiang Chen who listened, because he had no knowledge of either sailing or golf, and it was not good to pretend to know something. But in the end, the topic returned to business. Speaking of which, why has Mr. Jiang always held on to his shares so tightly? If Future Group is listed on Nasdaq, there is no doubt that you will become the richest man in the world, Luke said with emotion. Because I'm optimistic about the future of Future Group, I believe it will bring me more wealth than just the listing. Jiang Chen teased. But if we cooperate with other like-minded people, won't it be able to develop faster? Luke laughed. Then Mr. Luke, do you think my Future Group is developing very slowly? Jiang Chen asked in a joking tone. Luke was stunned for a moment, then laughed. That's true. Mr. Jiang's company has not even had a problem of capital shortage since its operation, which is really admirable. Thank you. Jiang Chen said modestly. Can I ask a question? Luke handed the empty wine glass to the waiter at the venue and replaced it with a glass. Of course, if I can answer it. Jiang Chen smiled. Whether it is Future 1.0 or the current Phantom helmet, your company can always come up with good things that are favored by the market. And that nutritional mixture, as well as seabed mining technology. I wonder what field you are going to enter next. Luke asked. Maybe we will develop in depth in the field of virtual reality, or invest in manned spaceflight, because I'm quite interested in space. Why do you ask this? Jiang Chen asked in a relaxed tone. To avoid accidentally becoming your competitor. Luke shrugged helplessly, looked at Jiang Chen and said teasingly, because of your company's virtual reality project, the Nasdaq sector is in a state of panic. Most of the listed companies related to the production of virtual reality equipment have fallen from the clouds to the bottom of the valley. Almost all investors who came into contact with the Phantom helmet through internet cafes have no doubt that their investment in the virtual reality project has gone to waste. Especially when a professor at Harvard University stood up and said that this is a technology that cannot be realized within 20 years. Let alone 20 years. In the timeline of the apocalypse, the first immersive virtual reality device will appear in 2050. I'm really sorry. Jiang Chen laughed insincerely. Haha, don't apologize to me. I never invest in the forefront of science and technology. Carmen and I are consistent in investment philosophy, Luke said teasingly. After a pause, he took a sip of champagne and asked, I wonder what Mr. Jiang Chen thinks of the resource industry? Supply exceeds demand. That's right, Luke smiled and nodded. Just 2 days ago, BHP Group disposed of 2 loss-making iron mines in Mexico, but all shareholders, including me, know that this approach is tantamount to drinking poison to quench thirst. The iron ore business is becoming more and more difficult to do, and it's not just steel. Other resources besides rare earths are more or less facing the same downward trend. Oh, really? Jiang Chen said thoughtfully. Of course, after all, the market demand is limited. Take rubber used in the construction field, for example. Most people will only own one house in their lifetime, but the lifespan of a house can be much longer than that of its owner. So even businessmen like us who have already occupied a dominant position in the resource industry have to be patient and take out some money to support some, well, industries that may give birth to new things. For example, the Rothschild family has invested in Daimler Group and invested in the bottomless new energy vehicle project. Another example is that without asking about the investment project, $30 billion was lent to a promising high-tech company. It's easy to get, or out of the ground. Take my old friend the Rothschild family for example. The Vale company they hold is the world's largest iron ore supplier, with 4 billion tons of iron ore reserves, which can be mined for nearly 400 years. This is just based on public data. At this point, Luke paused and looked at Jiang Chen meaningfully. If at this juncture, a technology that can reduce mining costs and bring previously unminable mineral deposits into the mining range appears, what do you think will be the impact on the already depressed resource mining industry? Hearing this, Jiang Chen has more or less guessed, while Luke came to him, or Carmen brought him here, and arranged for him to meet him. You mean, some technologies are too advanced? Jiang Chen thought. Yes. Luke nodded. For example, mature deep sea mining technology. Jiang Chen's pupils shrank slightly. Chapter 511 An agreement satisfying each other. Because you have made a breakthrough in deep sea mining, the current downward rate of the futures market for iron, copper, gold, manganese and other minerals has increased significantly. In order to maintain market stability, we mining giants have also made some efforts. Of course, the key to solving the problem lies in you. How many seabed minerals are there? If future mining has made a breakthrough in this regard, investors' expectations for seabed mining will undoubtedly increase. How many seabed resources are there? I'm afraid no one knows except Jiang Chen, who has obtained the global distribution map of proven mineral deposits. However, investors themselves are creatures that are good at using imagination. At this point, Luke looked at Jiang Chen with a smile. If I'm not mistaken, the cost of seabed mining for future mining should not be very high, and the output is still considerable. The expression on Luke's face clearly did not seem to be ignorant. At this time, there was obviously no point in concealing it, so Jiang Chen did not cover it up. You guessed right. The labor cost is only the salary of the few employees stationed on the offshore platform. The underwater equipment is powered by ocean current generators, and the maintenance cost is almost negligible. The only equipment cost was also paid by Asia Crystal. Jiang Chen, who could not calculate the exchange rate between Asia Crystal and the current currency, had no way to calculate the cost of these equipment. But one thing is certain, that is, the cost of seabed mining is very low, at least before the emergence of space mining. It is similar to the conclusion drawn by my analysts. Luke smiled and nodded. At present, the global iron, aluminum, copper and other ore markets are already precarious. It is no exaggeration to say that if the price of iron ore maintains the current downward trend, 47 mining companies in the world will face the risk of bankruptcy by the end of this year. It may be beneficial to us in the short term, but it is also dangerous for us in the long run. So, I hope to solve this problem by taking a step back. So what is your proposal? Jiang Chen asked with interest, looking at the smiling Luke. If I remember correctly, you can influence the government decision of SYNOPSIS. We hope that you can influence the decision of the presidential office to increase the mineral export tax by 50% in the next 5 years to limit the export of mineral resources in the country. Luke said softly. Jiang Chen was surprised. He originally thought that Luke would propose to acquire the technology of future mining, but he did not expect that he would only propose such a proposal that would not hurt future mining by restricting future mining from entering the international market to cool down investors. But what good will this do me? Jiang Chen said with a smile. Of course we will not let you do it for nothing. I'm willing to provide you with a 5-year effective supply order for iron, aluminum, copper and other ores at 80% of the current market price of mineral resources. For BHP Group, this is indeed a big step back. A 20% discount is almost supplying or at cost price, which means that they will work for Future Group for free in 5 years in exchange for the concession made by Future Group to delay the entry of low-cost ores into the global market. Use the power of capital to delay the emergence of new technology. Jiang Chen said meaningfully. You can understand it as paying enough benefits in the hope that you can delay the emergence of this technology. In the context of sluggish demand, launching such technology is not a good thing for the entire market. Luke said seriously. Having said this, Luke has made the attitude of BHP Group very clear. Jiang Chen certainly would not be naive to think that such an international mining giant would honestly solve the problem through market competition. With so many mineral resources in more than a dozen different countries around the world, their investment in politics must not be underestimated. The reason why they propose this is that they don't want to have a direct conflict with the Future Group, and they didn't even explain the subtext of the threat. After all, the Future Group is no longer the small shrimp it was before, and its core industry is mainly in the internet field, not in resource mining. The two sides can still avoid unnecessary conflicts. On the other hand, it is not just the BHP Group that is harmed. The Vale mining company controlled by Rothschild is the world's largest ore supplier. It is hard to say that his coincidental meeting with Luke has nothing to do with Carmen. At this moment, Jiang Chen's mind was turning quickly, weighing the pros and cons of this proposal. If possible, Jiang Chen did not want to have a direct conflict with these mining giants. Futureman technology needs a relatively stable development environment to expand its business. It is undoubtedly an unwise choice to make enemies for yourself at this time. Moreover, the resource surplus is only for the current situation. This agreement is said to be a step back, but it is really hard to say who will suffer the loss. Luke waited patiently for Jiang Chen's reply. He didn't let him wait for long. After a moment of silence, Jiang Chen asked, 5 years. Can I ask about the supply quota? You decide. Luke said generously, taking a sip of champagne elegantly. Hearing this, Jiang Chen raised a barely detectable smile at the corner of his mouth. 80 million tons. Hearing the number Jiang Chen broke out, Luke almost spit out the champagne he had drunk. 80 million tons. Mr. Jiang, do you have an idea of the number you gave? I'm not kidding. Even if all the steel mills in Xingu continue to operate for 50 years, I'm afraid that all the iron ore will not be processed. In 2015, China's annual iron ore imports were about 950 million tons, and Xingu's land area was less than half of China's province. Let alone 5 years. Even if it's 15 years, it's impossible to consume so much iron ore. In the eyes of outsiders, you don't need to worry about this. Future Group naturally has projects to digest these resources. By the way, these 80 million tons are the total amount of iron, aluminum, copper, nickel and other ores, not just iron ore. Of course, iron ore must account for the majority of these 80 million tons of ore, at least 75%. Jiang Chen smiled. Frowning, Luke hesitated for a moment and nodded. At most 50 million tons, and you must guarantee that I will provide you with ore at cost price, and you will not put these iron ore on the international market. This will be written into the contract. No problem. But I have to say in advance that we may build a factory in the neighboring country Papua New Guinea to process these ores and then ship them back to New Zealand. Jiang Chen reminded. New Zealand's labor resources are tight, and Jiang Chen intends to transfer these industries with high pollution and large labor demand to neighboring countries as much as possible. New Guinea, as a developing country, is undoubtedly a good choice, and there is also the budding Moro country. After thinking for a moment, Luke finally nodded. No problem. In addition, molybdenum, uranium, and rare earth resources are not within the scope of the agreement. Jiang Chen continued to propose. No problem. The molybdenum and rare earth markets are basically controlled by China and have nothing to do with us. By the way, is it technically feasible to mine uranium from the seabed? Luke's face showed an interested expression. It's not possible now, but it doesn't mean it won't be possible in the future. Maybe we can make a breakthrough in technology within 5 years. It's hard to say. Jiang Chen said ambiguously. Really? That's really surprising. If you have no other objections, I'm glad we have reached an agreement. Luke smiled and raised his glass. I wish us a happy cooperation. Jiang Chen also raised his glass, with a mysterious smile on his face. With the crisp sound of clinking glasses, the deal worth tens of billions of dollars was finally settled. Both parties had satisfied smiles on their faces, and it was obvious that both parties got the results they wanted. Luke got the promise from Future Mining not to bring deep sea mining technology into the global mining market. Although these 50 million tons of ore will not make money, it will not make BHP Group lose money. With the current market conditions, it is already very good to maintain a non-loss performance without reducing production. On the surface, it seems that BHP Group is working for free for Future Group, but from another perspective, this is also a solution to BHP Group's excess production capacity. As for Jiang Chen, the benefits he got are obvious. 50 million tons of ore were obtained at the floor price, which is crucial for the Future Group to build floating cities on the sea, base stations at the bottom of space elevators, and large habitable space stations in the near future. It will not take 5 years for Luke to regret the contract he signed tonight. Overcapacity of resources is always relative to the present. The only thing that puzzled Jiang Chen was, while Luke could so confidently judge the cost and output of future mining, and when he faced deep sea mining technology, he showed no mysterious calmness of acquisition intention. Looking at the wine glass in his hand, Jiang Chen fell into deep thought. Chapter 512. Questions and answers before the bonfire. With a satisfied smile, Luke took his glass and said goodbye, heading to other social circles. Seeing Luke leave, Jiang Chen originally thought that he would be free, but he was obviously muttering about his own attractiveness, or the attractiveness of Future Group to investors. The eyes that fell on him were either peeping, indifferent, jealous, or admiring, but there was no one who ignored him. As a newcomer to this banquet, and the chairman of Future Group, who holds a pivotal position in the internet field, no matter what the purpose was, there were many people who were happy to greet Jiang Chen and exchange business cards. Regardless of whether cooperation could be achieved, no one would complain about having too many friends, right? So, in the next 2 hours, Jiang Chen was almost exhausted by the following social etiquette. Mr. Jiang Chen, it's nice to meet you. Here is my business card. If you need to handle mergers and acquisitions in the future, please be sure to contact our bank. A banker said. Mr. Jiang, are you interested in financing? Don't rush to refuse. If Future Group has cash flow problems or major investment projects in the future, please contact us. A Wall Street investor who looked at Jiang Chen as if he were looking at a vault said confidently, "Is this your first time in Germany? If you have time, I would be happy to take you to visit this beautiful country." A lady with a familiar celebrity face, but Jiang Chen couldn't name her, said with a smile. In just 2 hours, the not so spacious pockets of his dress were filled with all kinds of business cards, and the stack of gold stamped business cards he prepared were almost used up. When dealing with these enthusiastic guests, Jiang Chen's eyes kept drifting towards the luxurious delicacies such as foie gras and mussel fish soup intentionally or unintentionally. However, what made him helpless was that he could not get rid of those enthusiastic bigwigs until the melodious violin sound in the venue was replaced by the walls, and the ladies and gentry walked hand in hand to the circular dance floor. However, at this time, the main course on the long table has been replaced with a sweet dessert. Coming out of the venue, the cool breeze blowing in his face reduced the heat a little. Perhaps it was because he breathed too much carbon dioxide. Jiang Chen always felt that the air blowing from the pine forest was particularly fresh. Carmen disappeared after the last speech, and Jiang Chen did not wait for him. After the curtain call of the party, he left with the crowd of guests. In the end, the two of them were just nodding acquaintances, mostly partners, and probably not friends. Because he wanted to stay outside for a while, Jiang Chen deliberately took a long detour and walked along the gravel road beside the pine forest. The shadow stretched under the street light. Jiang Chen flipped through the stack of business cards in his hand, put the ones he didn't need in the left pocket, and the ones he might need in the right pocket. Before throwing them into the storage space, he hoped to at least classify these business cards into major categories so that he wouldn't have to look through them for a long time when he needed them. However, the only two business cards that he felt were somewhat useful were the only two business cards. One was from Luke Joyce, and the other was from the boss of SpaceX, Elon Musk. Jiang Chen never expected to meet this guy here. The brown-haired middle-aged man had a very sunny smile on his face when he shook hands with Jiang Chen. He had obviously heard about the rumor that Jiang Chen acquired a space company to enter the aerospace field, but he did not show an opposing attitude towards this strong competitor. Instead, he expressed his hope to cooperate with future group in the aerospace field to jointly achieve the great and unattainable strategic goal of colonizing Mars. Although in Jiang Chen's eyes, this goal is not so far-fetched. In short, Jiang Chen still kept this business card. Maybe he will really cooperate with SpaceX in the aerospace field in the future. Just when Jiang Chen was halfway through, his stomach growled. "I'm still a little hungry." "Forget it, I'll get something to eat when I get back," Jiang Chen sighed and said. But at this moment, a wisp of barbecue oil aroma floated over his nose. Looking in the direction of the wind, Jiang Chen could vaguely see a sparse bonfire deep in the pine forest beside the path. The aroma of barbecue seemed to be coming from there, but who would be making a fire and grilling meat in the woods of Rothschild Manor at this time? It was impossible for Carmen, who was probably busy with the end of the party. Is it the servant of the Rothschild family? Jiang Chen said to himself. For some reason, he remembered the old man he saw in the morning, the old man who built a boat in front of the lakeside cottage. Driven by curiosity, Jiang Chen walked towards the direction of the fire. The mud was covered with yellow and soft pine needles, which made a little hoarse sound when stepped on. The woods were cool and quiet, completely different from the noisy banquet. When I have enough fun in the future, I will buy a house like this and live in seclusion. For some reason, this idea suddenly popped up in Jiang Chen's mind. But soon he smiled and shook his head, denying this idea. He was still young, and if nothing unexpected happened, he could continue to be young. If he didn't live a carefree life for more than 100 years, he would be unworthy of his identity as a time traveler. Grilled lamb leg, you are in for a treat. Perhaps because he noticed Jiang Chen's arrival, the old man didn't look back, but grinned at the firelight and said. Standing next to the old man, Jiang Chen glanced at the dry pine needles on the ground. Aren't you afraid of fire? It won't burn. Perhaps out of confidence in his barbecue skills, the old man's dry mouth corners slightly grinned with a confident ravine. Can you give me a piece? Of course, I'll pay. Looking at the golden lamb leg, Jiang Chen's appetite was also aroused, and he couldn't help but speak. Hearing Jiang Chen's words, the old man turned around, and his turbid eyes glowed like black pearls in the jumping firelight. Jiang Chen couldn't tell what it felt like. The sight was like a hunter, but he was not looking at the antelope. If you want to eat, just sit next to me. No need to pay. After saying this, the old man turned away. Glancing at the soil mixed with pine needles, Jiang Chen hesitated for 2 seconds, but still sat cross-legged next to the old man. After about 5 minutes, the aroma was strong. The old man skillfully sprinkled cumin and salt on the lamb leg on the grill, then took out a knife, flashed a white light twice, and handed the knife with the lamb leg meat to Jiang Chen. "Try it." Hesitantly put the tip of the knife to his mouth. Jiang Chen blew on it, and then took a bite. His eyes suddenly lit up. "How does it taste?" The old man smiled. "It's great." Jiang Chen returned the knife to the old man, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and praised him without hesitation. The old man grinned, did not say anything about Jiang Chen's praise, but cut off a large piece from the lamb leg again, and handed it to him. Then, he took out a spare knife and a pot of wine from his bag. "I have taught you how to cut the meat. Now you can try it yourself," the old man said, after taking a sip. Jiang Chen, who was full of champagne, declined the wine offered by the old man and just ate the lamb leg with relish. The two of them just sat in the forest without any extra words, just enjoying the delicious barbecue in silence. "Come to think of it, I seem to have seen you by the lake this morning," Jiang Chen suddenly said. "Oh, I was cutting wood at that time." The old man grinned. "Did you build that ship?" Jiang Chen asked in a casual tone, while chewing the roast meat. "I built the galleon from the keel to the sails by myself." The old man showed a proud smile on his face, as if he was showing off something very remarkable. It was remarkable, even to Jiang Chen, a layman. "Won't the Rothschild family help you?" At this point, Jiang Chen had realized that the old man must have a special status in the Rothschild family. It would be impossible for an ordinary servant to make a fire and roast meat in the woods of the manor. But looking at the old man's unkempt clothes, Jiang Chen could hardly associate him with the Rothschild family. Judging from the feeling Carmen gave him, the people of this family should all pay great attention to appearance and cultivation. "I told them not to help," the old man said with a smile. "Excuse me, who are you?" Hearing Jiang Chen asking his name, the old man grinned and wiped the greasy knife. "Giacomo Rothschild." This is a well-known name. When Jiang Chen investigated the financial family, when he was the last head of the Rothschild family, he had done some research on this name. This legendary figure who led the Rothschild family out of the shadow of decline after World War II, but history only described him in a few simple words. Even the fact that he passed the position of head of the family to his younger brother and lived a secluded life in a manor in Bavaria was only mentioned lightly in the financial news panel. "That's right, so after retirement, I won't use this name much," Giacomo said lightly. "Then what name should I use?" "Paris." The stubble on his chin shook, and the light of the bonfire reflected the smile on the corner of the old man's mouth. This name sounded familiar, as if it belonged to a hero in ancient Greek mythology. The prince who was questioned by Zeus to whom to offer the golden apple, the one who ignited the fuse of the Trojan War. Jiang Chen wanted to ask why he was called this name, but he finally held back. If possible, he didn't want to have anything to do with the golden apple anymore. However, the old man spoke first. "If you get the golden apple, who will you give it to? Hera, Athena, or Aphrodite?" It's really a difficult question to answer. Sighing, Jiang Chen pinched his chin with his hand and thought seriously for a moment. "This is a difficult question to answer. I almost have power and wealth. I don't seem to lack the wisdom and courage to create a heroic path. Maybe I will give it to Aphrodite. After all, in this era, the more power and wealth you have, the farther away from pure love. And a war comparable to the Trojan War will not make people feel bored." Ha 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 ha. Giacomo laughed heartily, as if he heard something interesting. The voice with the vicissitudes of time echoed in the pine forest. After a while, the pine forest returned to silence, leaving only the rustling sound of pine needles moving in the wind. "Very interesting answer. Although the choice is superficial, the reason for the choice is surprisingly interesting." Jiang Chen just smiled indifferently at Giacomo's comment and returned the question in a half-joking tone. "So which god will you dedicate it to, Mr. Paris?" Giacomo grinned, and the wrinkles on his face squeezed together. In the light of the fire, the smile looked a little grim, or even barbaric. "No matter who I dedicate it to, it's hell. Of course, I'll keep it for myself. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 513 Munich Auto Show. On the way back to the main hall of the manor, Jiang Chen kept thinking about Yakono's last words. When he asked Yakono how to use the golden apple with the power of mortal, the old man just smiled and did not answer. The old man's reaction also made Jiang Chen secretly relieved. His smile without saying anything at least put Jiang Chen in the position of an outsider. That is, he thought Jiang Chen did not know the real golden apple. After eating the whole roasted lamb leg, the old man put out the campfire, buried the shaved bones in the mud, then said goodbye to Jiang Chen, picked up the white cloth bag, and walked towards the cabin by the lake. Perhaps because he was thinking about something, time passed quickly, and Jiang Chen returned to the main hall unknowingly. When he arrived, Butler Thaddeus was already standing at the door waiting for him. "Have you seen the master?" When Jiang Chen walked up to him, the old butler smiled and asked politely, "How did you know?" Jiang Chen asked with interest. "The pine needles on your shoulders and the aroma of roasted lamb legs on your body." Thaddeus smiled. "Master Carmen and I have always reminded Master Yakono not to eat too greasy food, but he never listens. Let's not talk about this. Please change your dress. It is not the Rothschild family's way of hospitality to let guests' pants get stained with mud." After taking a shower in the bathroom, the maid of the manor took Jiang Chen's dress to the laundry room and fetched clean clothes for him. As soon as Jiang Chen returned to the room, he saw Aisha coming up. Although she didn't speak, looking at her blue eyes that seemed to be able to speak, he guessed what she wanted to say. Nothing, just met an interesting person on the way and was delayed for a while. Reaching out and rubbing her soft hair, Jiang Chen smiled and told her what happened on the way back. Aisha straightened Jiang Chen's collar, tiptoed and kissed him on the lips, looked into Jiang Chen's eyes, and complained softly, "Please don't eat strangers' food casually. If you are hungry, I can make it for you. Don't worry, if it's somewhere else, I will pay attention." Jiang Chen smiled. The Rothschild family would never do such a low thing as poisoning. The more powerful a person is, the more he cherishes his feathers. A large part of the reason why the Rothschild family has the current network of people is precisely because of their hospitality. Even if someone wants to murder her by poisoning, ordinary viruses are really useless to him. "Yeah," Aisha replied in a low voice. "Today, well-known car manufacturers from all over Europe and even the world are gathered here." Walking in the exhibition hall of the Munich Motor Show, Carmen explained to Jiang Chen enthusiastically, "Over there is our company's new luxury car Maybach X, which is limited to 5 units worldwide, and one of them belongs to you." Carmen smiled and winked at Jiang Chen. Maybach X, limited to 5 units worldwide, is expected to be sold at 4.2 million euros, equivalent to 28.66 million yuan. According to the bet between Jiang Chen and him, if he can deliver the intelligent driving system before May, he will give him one. The black body exudes an obsidian-like luster, and the streamlined body can feel a surging sense of speed just by looking at it. Especially the car model standing next to it, with a slim black pleated evening dress and a noble and cold face. The noble and mysterious temperament of Maybach X is set off to the fullest. No car model is included, but with your financial resources, it shouldn't be difficult to take the car model home. Perhaps noticing Jiang Chen's gaze, Carmen said in a half-joking tone. Seeing Carmen and Jiang Chen walking side by side, the reporter immediately raised the camera and took a close-up of the two people chatting in a friendly manner. Artificial intelligence always brings people endless reverie, and this reverie is usually reflected in the stock price of listed companies. Speaking of which, what is the theme of this auto show? Jiang Chen asked casually, looking around the auto show venue. His eyes swept over the unique luxury cars. New energy in the future. Carmen said. The future. It's really a profound theme. Jiang Chen noticed a car with a shape similar to a wheel on a booth nearby. What caught people's attention was not its shape, but the fact that it was suspended half a meter above the ground. It coincides with the name of your company. Carmen teased. Magnetic levitation car? Reaching out his hand and gently touching the car's shell, Jiang Chen asked thoughtfully. It's just a concept car. The Daimler Group has also made this thing, but we are not optimistic about its prospects because it is too difficult to realize. It can only be driven on roads paved with geomagnetic networks, and such roads cost 10,000 euros per meter. 10,000 euros. Jiang Chen calculated it and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Considering the intricate road network in Europe, this is indeed an astronomical figure. However, Jiang Chen himself did not have much sense of the technical difficulties of magnetic levitation cars. After all, the road network in the inner circle of the 6th district is paved with that thing. Looking at the laying speed of the pile driver, the cost should not be very high. I have to go to the Daimler Group's booth in a while. Just find me there when the time comes. Before facing those difficult reporters, I recommend you to walk around first. Carmen smiled. Then go and get busy. Jiang Chen smiled. After separating from Carmen, Jiang Chen walked along the road signs of the exhibition. Along the way, he was really feasting his eyes. In order to win the favor of investors, major automobile manufacturers also put all their efforts into the auto show, with all kinds of beautiful models gathered, which was quite competitive. In addition to those well-known large manufacturers, many small manufacturers who brought their own dry food to the exhibition also showed their unique skills. After all, if they can get the favor of big capital at the auto show, they will also be free from the pain of dealing with those vampire-like venture capitalists and bankers. The closer you walk to the corner of the auto show venue, the sparser the figures are, and the signs hanging on the booths have become those of unknown small manufacturers. Although the automotive industry has a high entry threshold, this does not prevent small manufacturers who can't even produce decent products from participating in the auto show. At this moment, in the corner of the venue, a car on display at an inconspicuous booth attracted Jiang Chen's attention. It was not because of how beautiful the car was, nor because of how amazing its performance was, but because Jiang Chen walked forward and glanced at the card in front of the booth. French Ruka Automobile Company was a brand that Jiang Chen had never even heard of. He even doubted whether this Ruka Automobile Company had its own car production plant. While Jiang Chen was looking at the card, Ruka was looking at him nervously. He had done enough homework before participating in the exhibition. Not to mention remembering all the guests invited to the auto show, he could still name at least more than 100 important guests who received media attention. Not to mention a big shot like Jiang Chen. To be honest, facing the booth that no one was interested in, he almost had no hope. At first, he fantasized that it might be because the visitors hadn't walked here from the front, but more than an hour had passed, and he had almost given up this helpless self-consolation. He even sent the accompanying employees off work early. After all, for him, overtime pay was still a bit expensive. However, he never expected that his booth would attract Jiang Chen's attention. Because he was too nervous, he completely forgot the speech he had prepared. But just when he was about to say something to introduce his products, Jiang Chen spoke first. Your booth doesn't even have a car model? 5 more chapters are here. At this rate, it seems that it is possible to pay off 9 more chapters before April 1st. As I said, I have always been very moral, but when I thought about the 50-page handwritten paper I still owed the professor, I felt desperate. Chapter 514 Financing Proposal. Hearing this, Ralka showed a helpless expression. He never thought that Jiang Chen would notice his booth for this reason. I can't afford it. Jiang Chen looked a little strange when he heard Ralka's honest answer. Although he expected that the company's financial situation should not be very good, he didn't expect that they were so poor. Electric car? I feel that your car doesn't seem to be anything special compared to other electric cars. Seeing Jiang Chen talking about his product, Ralka immediately became excited. No, Mr. Jiang Chen, you don't understand the uniqueness of our product. We use wireless charging technology to save the connection port of the charging car. In this way, the owner only needs to park the car in the designated charging parking space to complete the charging. In other words, if you are compared to a mobile phone manufacturer, your advantage over other mobile phones is that you don't need a data cable to charge. Jiang Chen teased. Although he didn't have a deep understanding of the automobile manufacturing industry, he still knew something about pure electric vehicles. There is no other reason, because the end of the world is basically electric cars, and fossil fuel cars will be eliminated with historical inevitability, just like the coal-fired steam cars. The technical difficulties in the development of modern pure electric vehicles mainly lie in the 2 aspects of endurance and charging time. Let's start with endurance. Under ideal conditions, at a constant speed of 30 km per hour, it is difficult for a pure electric vehicle to reach a range of 300 km. Such a short range will undoubtedly bring great inconvenience to the owner, which is also the main reason for restricting the promotion of pure electric vehicles. There is also the problem of charging time. Under normal circumstances, the charging time of pure electric vehicles is between 7 to 8 hours. Although the widely used lithium-ion carbonate battery has a fast charging mode that can be fully charged in half an hour, the impact of high power charging on battery life is quite serious, especially the heat generation cannot be underestimated. But when running on the highway, you can't spend 7 or 8 hours leisurely waiting for the battery to be fully charged. For many impatient people, half an hour of refueling time is already very tiring. However, the Lucas Automobile Company obviously missed the point of the technology tree. It did not make any achievements in the above two technical difficulties, but focused on the research and development of wireless charging technology. To put it nicely, it is far-sighted. To put it bluntly, it is learning to run before learning to walk. However, it is precisely because of this that the concept car launched by their company attracted Jiang Chen's attention. Because the car charging station in the end of the world happens to use wireless charging technology, the owner only needs to drive the car to the designated parking space and start the charging service by logging into the mobile electronic device or car computer with personal information. Convenience is the advantage of wireless charging. Hearing Jiang Chen's ridicule, Lucas' face immediately showed an embarrassed expression. And I don't know if you have considered the energy loss. I don't know much about cars, but as far as mobile phones are concerned, as far as I know, with the current wireless charging technology, the energy loss is also 30% in the best case. Seeing the expression on Lucas' face, Jiang Chen smiled and continued. Hearing Jiang Chen belittle his company's masterpiece like this, Lucas was immediately unhappy and retorted. You can't say that. The lithium battery designed by our company can shorten the charging time to 15 minutes. And it won't affect the battery life. A quarter of an hour. This is an incredible ability. Jiang Chen looked at Lucas with some surprise. Oh, how did you do it? Lucas kept silent about Jiang Chen's question. Seeing that he didn't speak, Jiang Chen had a better idea. Not speaking means that his solution doesn't require a lot of technical content, or that the technical difficulty of implementing it is not very large. If it is difficult to imitate, he doesn't have to keep silent. Mr. Lucas, if you are not willing to satisfy my curiosity, how can you expect me to willingly pay for your product? Jiang Chen said softly. Are you willing to invest in us? Lucas' face flashed with surprise. If your product can arouse my interest, Jiang Chen said in a nonchalant tone. Lucas struggled for a moment, and finally sighed and spoke. Well, to be honest, although we have registered 12 patents for this car, the patent office rejected our patent documents for the most critical creative aspect. The reason for the rejection is simple. You can't apply for a patent for such a trivial thing as connecting lithium batteries in series. Well, you should have understood it by now. Seeing the sudden expression on Jiang Chen's face, Lucas spread his hands helplessly. Yes, I have to say that your solution is very creative. Jiang Chen said with shame. Yes, he already understood Lucas' solution, which is to connect many lithium batteries in series, and then connect a charging module to the base of each battery. Because of wireless charging technology, the charging base station can easily charge n lithium batteries connected in series in the car body at the same time. This approach can indeed shorten the charging time, but the disadvantages are so obvious that people can't complain. But I don't know if you have considered the cost issue and the size of the battery. Equip each battery with a charging module. Jiang Chen couldn't help but ask. Speaking of this issue, Ralka's face showed a hint of pride. This has to do with the KS12 integrated battery designed by our company. This is almost the core of our entire vehicle technology. It consists of 8 independent lithium battery cells, with a total storage capacity of up to 40 kWh and a range of more than 180 kilometers. This data is average compared to the pure electric vehicles currently on the market, but the two advantages of wireless charging and fast charging can add a lot of points to it. But there is still a most critical issue that Ralka did not mention, that is, the cost. What about the cost? Jiang Chen repeated the most critical question. Ralka's expression became awkward again, and his eyes glanced to the side. Of course, cost is indeed a problem, but our technicians have come up with an improvement plan. If we can get an investment, we are confident that we can reduce the cost to a reasonable range. Hearing this, Jiang Chen's face showed a playful expression. Usually, electric cars are twice the price of fuel cars with the same performance. Judging from Ralka's expression, the cost performance of this car is probably a bit pitiful. Can I ask the price of this car? After hesitating for a moment, Ralka still answered truthfully, if it is mass produced, the cost will be around $700,000. How many people do you think will pay for your car? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. Ralka smiled bitterly and said, Mr. Jiang Chen, if you have been talking to me for so long just to mock me, then you have achieved your goal. Then you are doomed to be disappointed. I'm not mocking you, but I'm very interested in your company or technology. After a pause, Jiang Chen smiled and handed over his business card. So, are you interested in a $100 million financing proposal? Chapter 515, Layout of Electric Vehicle Field. Many years later, recalling what happened that day, Luca didn't know what kind of mood he was in at the time. The only thing he remembered was that his hand was shaking when he took the business card. It was as if what he held in his hand was not a gold-stamped business card, but a pile of gold weighing several tons. Jiang Chen asked for 80% of the shares, which was not too much. At present, Luca Automobile Company does not even have its own car factory. The only source of income is the special fund for new energy vehicle technology approved by the French government. The only valuable thing is the 11 patents involved in the integrated battery and several car drawings that can apply for special funds, as well as 10 technicians who Luca can't even pay their salaries. $100 million in financing is nothing to Jiang Chen, and it is nothing to most car companies with a market value of tens of billions. But it is undoubtedly a timely rain for Luca, which is on the verge of bankruptcy. Jiang Chen's request to Luca Company is also very simple. Don't rush to build a factory for production. I need you to shift the focus of your research from the development of the KS12 integrated battery to improving the performance of pure electric vehicles and their adaptability to wireless charging batteries. But now that we have this money, we are fully capable of improving the energy storage effect and charging speed of integrated batteries, which are the key to pure electric vehicles. Ralka is a wise man. Although he proposed the concept of wireless charging a little ahead of its time, it was also proposed out of consideration for charging speed. We will solve the battery problem. The specifications and parameters of the battery will be sent to you in a week. Jiang Chen smiled. Ralka knew that the we Jiang Chen mentioned was referring to the Future Group. Although he doubted whether the Future Group really had research on electric vehicle batteries, he thought about the shocking achievements of the Future Group and kept this question to himself. In fact, what confused him the most was what Jiang Chen saw in their company. But since Jiang Chen didn't say it, he didn't ask. After saying goodbye to Ralka, Jiang Chen walked around the venue a few more times. The booths he was interested in were quite special. They were basically small manufacturers that were technically alternative, but not favored by the market. Such manufacturers have a characteristic, that is, they are in poor financial condition, and the booths are basically run by the chairman and engineer himself. When Jiang Chen took out bundles of banknotes as bait and opened his bloody mouth to take the shares, their chairman even offered the shares in his hands with both hands with a sly joy. Of course, there were also people who refused Jiang Chen. For those who refused, Jiang Chen's approach was also very direct. Just turn around and leave. There are too many manufacturers participating in this auto show. Regardless of their level, as long as the manufacturers meet the requirements of new energy projects, they are invited or sign up to participate in the exhibition. If you don't want to sell, naturally someone will cut off their heads and want to sell. A total of $500 million was used to acquire 3 automobile companies, namely, Luca, Fincay in France, and Lyon in Germany, with controlling stakes of 80%, 85%, and 75% respectively. Jiang Chen used his own money to acquire these 3 companies, not the Future Group's, so he also signed his own name on the equity transfer agreement. When he returns to Singapore, he will register another subsidiary under the Future Group, named Future Heavy Industry. The first business will be pure electric vehicle batteries, which will be used for wireless charging facilities for the batteries. The 3 automobile companies he bought will use the batteries produced by Future Heavy Industry as core components to produce electric vehicles. Jiang Chen did not think about monopolizing the entire automobile production chain, but he finally gave up the idea. The reason is that it is simply unnecessary. The battery is the core of the electric vehicle, even more important than the motor, which is exactly the opposite of the fuel car, where the engine is more important than the mailbox. First-class companies make standards, and second-class companies make products. It is enough for Future to be the standard setter. There is no need to monopolize the entire production line at the risk of being investigated by antitrust and anti-dumping. Support the 3 companies in which he holds shares to become leaders in the field of electric vehicles, and then bring the high-performance batteries developed by Future Heavy Industry to the market. When all customers are accustomed to the convenient and fast wireless charging electric vehicles, charging stations and parking lots are equipped with charging equipment that matches the specifications of the batteries launched by Future Heavy Industry. By then, Future Heavy Industry will undoubtedly have secured the throne of the standard setter. Of course, this is easy to say, but it still needs some consideration to implement. Halfway through the auto show, Jiang Chen returned to the Daimler Group's exhibition area as agreed with Carmen. Carmen enthusiastically introduced Jiang Chen to his business friends, including Andy Barford, the European manager of Gulfstream Aerospace. At the price of $65 million, Jiang Chen readily bought the latest Gulfstream G650 private jet. Under the flash of media reporters, Zech, CEO of Daimler Group, held Jiang Chen's hand and raised it, and then personally handed the unfolded Maybach X car key to Jiang Chen's hand. It symbolizes the friendship between Future Group and Daimler Group. For Jiang Chen, just taking a photo together got a luxury car that is limited to 5 units sold worldwide. For Daimler, they only paid €4.2 million and gained a 4% increase in their stocks. Investors are clearly full of confidence in the artificial intelligence technology of Futureman Technology. Even though he already has a Morenby car, Jiang Chen still likes this gift very much. After all, the meaning of a car to a man is not only a means of transportation, but also a symbol of ability and status. He may not drive this car often, but it is also a good choice to put it in the garage as a collection. Daimler Group will be responsible for contacting the transporter to transport this luxury car directly to the Koro Island Airport in Singapore for custody. When Jiang Chen got off the plane in Singapore, the car was almost ready to drive. After casually saying a few words about the prospects for the development of artificial intelligence in front of the media, Jiang Chen did not stay in the venue for long and left early through the special passage of the venue. Jiang Chen avoided the media at the door very low-key and got into the black car that Carmen lent him for transportation. Seeing Jiang Chen get in the car, Aisha, who was sitting in the driver's seat, started the car very skillfully. "Where are we going?" "Munich University." Nodding, Aisha stepped on the accelerator. A small black women's suit, which matched the sunglasses on her nose, added a bit of cool charm to Aisha, who was holding the steering wheel. Flipping through the business cards in his hand, Jiang Chen planned today's itinerary in his mind. Because he left the auto show early, he planned to stop by the University of Munich before returning to the Bavaria Manor. On the one hand, he planned to see Zilei. After all, he was still the guardian of the brother and sister in name. On the other hand, Jiang Chen hoped that Zilei could help him find talents in mechanical and automotive engineering. After all, Germany's industrial manufacturing power and technological level are well deserved to be the world's #1. In order to digest the technology of the end of the world, it is definitely a meaningful thing to recruit more talents, to enrich the scientific research team of Future Group. And those college students who have just left campus are naturally capable of accepting new knowledge, and the cost of recruiting them is obviously lower than that of technicians who have already signed contracts with other companies. As long as they can accept immigrants, whether it is housing or salary, Future Group will offer them treatment that they can't think of any reason to refuse. Soon, the car drove to the University of Munich. Asking Aisha to slow down, Jiang Chen looked at this world-famous institution of higher learning at the gate, and then fixed the library closest to the school gate on the GPS. On the phone, Jiang Chen simply said something to Zilei, and agreed to meet here. Chapter 516. Long time no see. Long time no see. It's been a long time. Would you like a cup of coffee? No, I'm just taking a look around here. The environment in the library of the University of Munich is very elegant. There are many students sitting at the table to check information, but the library is very quiet. At this moment, Jiang Chen is standing by the bookshelf, flipping through an illustrated astronomy book in his hand. Because Zilei hadn't finished his class when he arrived, he waited for a while. It was at that time that the book caught his attention. To be precise, it was an illustration that caught his attention. How is life in Germany? In order to avoid disturbing others, Jiang Chen tried to lower his tone. We are doing well. Ziling's eyes have basically recovered. The hospital said that she needs to be observed for a few days. I told her that when she is discharged from the hospital, I will definitely take her to Neuschwanstein Castle to see it. Thank you. Compared to the pale and thin boy a year ago, he has grown a lot taller now, and he also has some sunshine and vitality that he should have at his age. Jiang Chen is very satisfied with his growth and the gratitude in his eyes. This proves that his investment has not been in vain. Helping the siblings was one of the few good things he had done. No need to thank me, Jiang Chen said softly without moving his eyes away from the page. Zilei asked, after glancing at the book Jiang Chen was reading. Are you interested in astronomy? The aerospace field is within my investment scope, but I don't have any special interest in astronomy, or I'm only interested in a particular planet. Jiang Chen said as he rubbed his thumb gently on the dark red planet. Unlike the emerald green and flashy red sphere he had seen in his dream, this planet is dead. Which one? Gliese 581, 20.5 light years away from the solar system. Whenever Jiang Chen saw this planet, he felt powerless and felt that he was doing useless work. Facing the harmonious civilization that had experienced more than 1,000 years of war, even if he got the paper on the warp engine, he didn't have much chance of winning. If this world is going to be destroyed, then both the future group and the starring trade will be meaningless. Of course, as long as there is a glimmer of hope, he will not give up. Zilei pondered for a while in his heart and had no impression of this name at all. Was this picture taken through a telescope? Jiang Chen asked very naively. How is it possible? Although the Hubble telescope can capture planets hundreds of light years away, it is basically impossible to directly obtain planetary images. Some stars are too weak, and some are directly covered by the strong light of stars. Most exoplanets analyze the planetary environment based on information such as spectra, and then draw planetary images. Is that so? I can't tell that you know a lot. Knowing nothing about the intelligence of the invaders, the entire war is almost half lost. It seems that we have to find a way to get a more advanced astronomical telescope. My senior sister is in the Astronomical Observation Club, Zilei said. Jiang Chen looked at him unexpectedly. I've been paying attention to you before. You are quite popular. Zilei was stunned and scratched his cheek a little embarrassedly. Really? How are your interpersonal relationships in college? It's okay. Do me a favor. No problem. Zilei said seriously. Don't be so nervous. This is not a dangerous thing. Jiang Chen closed the book, put it back into the bookshelf, took out a note from his arms, and handed it to him. What is this? Zilei looked at the note in his hand and asked in confusion. Help me find some talents. Mechanical automation, electrical engineering, nanomaterials, information technology, so many majors. Why not hold a job fair? Because the recruitment is not a formal position, it is just a talent reserve or an investment in science. The requirements are good character, at least trustworthy, and have enough interest in new technologies, and have a strong ability to absorb new knowledge. That's about it. You should understand what kind of person I need. Jiang Chen looked at Zilei and said. Although he didn't quite understand, Zilei still nodded. Leave it to me. I know this is a demanding request, but I also believe that you have the ability to overcome difficulties. Participate in more student activities, build good relationships with classmates and other international students, Find out their character, and it would be best if you can join the student union. Learn more about how to handle these interpersonal relationships. I sent you here to study in college, not just to let you learn some computer knowledge. At this point, Jiang Chen patted Zilei's shoulder. I believe in you. Zilei looked at him blankly. Any other questions? Jiang Chen asked. Nothing. I just felt that your actions just now were very similar to your father. Zilei scratched his cheek and said. Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, then laughed and scolded. What are you thinking about? I didn't. Please keep the library quiet. The librarian who had been standing next to the bookshelf looked at Jiang Chen expressionlessly and spoke in Chinese in a serious manner. Jiang Chen was kicked out of the library by the unkind librarian, and the expression on his face was a bit funny. Fortunately, there were no media ambushing nearby, otherwise he would be on the headlines again. But fortunately, because there were bookshelves on both sides, no one noticed him when he left the reading room on the second floor. Do you want to go to the coffee shop upstairs? You can chat there. No, I should leave soon. You can do your thing. Remember the task I gave you. You have plenty of time to complete it. As for the task funds required, just text me a number. Isn't it just making more friends? This task still needs money? Zilei glanced at Jiang Chen. Money can win people's hearts, and it can also make people forget themselves. After leaving this meaningful sentence, Jiang Chen patted Zilei encouragingly and said goodbye to the young man. When Jiang Chen came out of the side door of the library, he found that many students were looking at him. Although Europeans are somewhat face blind when looking at Asians, he has been in the news quite frequently recently, and many college students still recognized him. There was even a blonde female college student who boldly came forward and expressed her hope to take a photo with him and post it on Twitter. Jiang Chen could only satisfy the fans' wish and forced a smile at the camera as she was excitedly posting on Twitter. While she was posting on Twitter, Jiang Chen did not stay for long and immediately walked towards the garage of the library. Go back to the manor. Yes. Nodding, Aisha started the car skillfully. Munich is the capital of Bavaria, and the Rothschild family's manor is located in the eastern suburbs of the state. When the two returned to the manor, it was almost dark. Seeing the two return, Thaddeus ordered the kitchen to prepare food for them. Perhaps because they knew that Jiang Chen would leave the day after tomorrow, the food prepared by the kitchen was particularly rich. After running around outside for most of the day, Jiang Chen couldn't help but salivate when he saw the table full of delicious food. After enjoying dinner, Jiang Chen took a shower in the bathroom and returned to the bedroom. After attending the auto show, the main purpose of this trip to Germany was almost completed. According to the plan, he plans to take Aisha to Munich for a good time tomorrow, which will be regarded as a complete end to this trip. He was a little tired, so in order to ensure that he could get up tomorrow morning, Jiang Chen lay down on the bed and fell asleep early. But just when he was about to fall asleep, the phone rang. Picking up the phone from the bedside table, Jiang Chen first glanced at the time. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening. Who could be calling? Unknown caller. After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Chen pressed the answer button. Chapter 517 for Germany. Bavaria is a large province in Germany, and its capital, Munich, is second only to Berlin in terms of politics and economy. Its infrastructure and educational resources are among the best in Europe. Many institutions of higher learning, led by the Technical University of Munich, are also very popular with international students. Among the international student circles of various countries, the circle of Chinese international students is undoubtedly relatively large, and it is also the most united on the surface among the international student organizations of various countries. Among them, the Chinese International Students Mutual Aid Association in Germany is the main one, with members from the University of Berlin to the University of Munich, and even plays an important role in the entire Chinese community in Germany. When Chen Yuqiao, the president of the Mutual Aid Association, saw in the news that Jiang Chen was invited by the Daimler Group to attend the Munich Auto Show on October 31st, he immediately became interested. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It just so happens that the Mutual Aid Association is planning to hold a school-level student event recently. If the Bill Gates of the East, who is in the limelight, can be invited to the event to say a few words, it will be a huge boost to the influence of the Mutual Aid Association among German international students and even outside the circle. At the same time, as the president of the Mutual Aid Association, she will also add a strong and colorful stroke to her personal resume. In addition, she has other plans. She studied finance and international trade at the University of Munich. With her grades, it is absolutely no problem for her to stay in Germany to work, but due to the economic downturn in Europe, she is not very satisfied with the salaries offered by several companies that have contacted her. She has completed 3 years of undergraduate studies and has to consider her future. At present, Futureman Technology is developing international business. It is not only investors who are optimistic about the prospects of Futureman Group, but also these visionary job seekers. If she can take this opportunity to show her organizational skills and make a familiar face in front of the chairman of Futureman Group, she will undoubtedly have more options when she gets a job in the future. But how to contact Jiang Chen? She was in trouble until a tweet from a classmate attracted her attention. It was a group photo, and the background of the photo was the side door of the library of the University of Munich, and the man in the photo was Jiang Chen. This tweet was sent by a student from the Department of International Trade. Since that student happened to be working in the student union, and the Mutual Aid Association had a good relationship with the student union of the University of Munich, she followed that student's Twitter. What a coincidence. As soon as she saw this tweet, she immediately went to the library and asked the librarian if he had seen Jiang Chen. Unfortunately, the old manager in his 50s did not pay attention to things outside the library, so he had no impression of the name Jiang Chen. However, when she showed the photo in the tweet, the librarian immediately reacted. Is it the guy who made a loud noise in the reading room and was kicked out? Although the librarian was a little dumbfounded to kick Jiang Chen out, Chen Yukio still patiently asked the old man about the details of the incident. When she learned that a male student had met Jiang Chen, she immediately used her connections in the student group to get the surveillance video in the library's borrowing registration information and locked the male student's name to Zilei. This Zilei should rarely participate in student organizations, so his name is not on the list of the Mutual Aid Association. But it didn't matter. She found a way to get the contact book from the student union. Although she knew that it might be a bit presumptuous to do so, she still gritted her teeth and called the number in the Guardian column with the triad mentality. Hello? Jiang Chen asked casually after answering the phone. Hello, are you Mr. Jiang Chen? Chen Yukio tried to make her voice sound less nervous. Yes. May I ask who you are? It was a very young female voice, and Jiang Chen had no impression of it at all. After getting a positive answer, Chen Yukio's face showed a touch of ecstasy. My name is Chen Yukio, the president of the German Chinese Students Mutual Aid Association. It's like this. Chen Yukio politely stated that she hoped Jiang Chen would give a speech as a special guest at the overseas student party and just say a few words about artificial intelligence, virtual reality or industry prospects. Although she had practiced her speech in front of the mirror for many times, Chen Yukio still felt a little uneasy. After all, the person on the other side was an internet giant with a market value of hundreds of billions, and its investment field even crossed the boundaries of the internet. From nutritional mixtures to deep sea mining, there were traces of Future Group. However, Jiang Chen's answer made her ecstatic. My flight is the day after tomorrow afternoon. Can you come tomorrow night? No problem. We will adjust the time. Thank you very much. Chen Yukio kept thanking him on the phone. Jiang Chen just smiled. It happened that there was no reservation for the whole day tomorrow, so there was no harm in attending the overseas student party. Moreover, giving a speech at such a high-level institution as the chairman would also help to increase the influence of Future Group among these students. After all, the future employees of Future Group are hidden among these students. You're welcome, but don't expect too much. I'm just here to say a few words. No, we are very grateful that you can come. After hanging up the phone, Chen Yukio breathed a sigh of relief. He agreed. Although he had already got the answer from the president's face, the vice president standing next to him still asked as if to confirm. Well, Oklahoma. Chen Yukio nodded happily, restraining her excitement. Cheng, you will be responsible for contacting the sponsors and the school media to move the Chinese students' social evening party forward to tomorrow night. Will it be in time? The venue is not ready yet, Cheng said with difficulty. It will be in time, even if it is too late, Chen Yukio said. Others did not care about this abrupt invitation and took time out of their busy schedule to attend the party, which was very easy to talk to. Li Wei, you will be responsible for contacting the school to replace the reserved lecture hall with the large lawn in front of the West District Church. But will the school agree? Of course they will, Chen Yukio said in an affirmative tone. Li Wei nodded, turned around and walked quickly out the door. She remembered that the professor in charge of academic affairs had a class tonight, and his research field also covered artificial intelligence. If they invited Jiang Chen to give a speech at the overseas student party, it might not be difficult to change the venue temporarily. Maybe the professor himself would go to listen to the class. While the Mutual Aid Association of the University of Munich was busy with this, a march was taking place in front of the Munich Opera House, 2 streets away from the Technical University of Munich. However, in a country where marches are commonplace, this scene is too common. People held up the German women who died in the refugee sexual assault incidents, and held up the victims of refugee violence in the past 6 months, and walked through the main road of the Opera House. They shouted slogans to expel refugees, and protested against the wrong decisions made by the German authorities on the refugee issue. 6 months ago, these kind-hearted people still accepted these displaced refugees. After all, a high welfare society produces many saints. At first, people put pressure on the government to introduce a bill to stop these poor people from being locked outside the fence, protesting against neighboring countries hanging pig heads on the border road. In just half a year, they reaped the fruits of their own labor. Welfare was diluted, crime rates soared, and employment rates declined. What else can a group of poor and idle people do when they gather together? What's more, outside the fence is the bright lights and feasting of the prosperous world. Let them go back to their own countries. Germany is not the welfare home of the whole world. Get out of Germany. They must pay for the deaths. The march was huge, but generally peaceful. The police in bulletproof vests just stood aside and watched the marchers from a distance. Tomorrow, the German president will go to the Opera House to watch a performance with the Austrian president. The security level of the Opera House is unusually high, but in order to avoid accidents and affect tomorrow's diplomatic activities, the police did not step forward to drive away the marchers. As long as these demonstrators do not approach the Opera House, as long as these demonstrators remain rational. In the crowd of onlookers, 2 German youths stood together. Is it almost done? Almost done. The young man with the hooked nose stared at the names of the victims on the wooden sign with a gloomy face and reached out to pull up the scarf around his collar. For Germany. After leaving these words to his companion, he turned and left and was soon lost in the crowd. His companion stared at his back. For Germany. Chapter 518. The actors are in place. The next morning, Jiang Chen and Aisha had breakfast in the dining room and went straight to the garage. According to the plan, today was a free day. Jiang Chen planned to take the little girl to have a good time in Munich and then go to the University of Munich to attend the international student party at 7 o'clock in the evening. Aisha had been looking forward to this date since last night. After getting up in the morning, she tried on several clothes in a row and finally chose a pure black cotton skirt and a pair of thick soled shoes and put on a little light makeup. Because it was private time, Jiang Chen also dressed casually, put on a grey windbreaker over his shirt, and went out holding her hand. On the way to the garage, the 2 unexpectedly ran into Carmen, who was talking to a man wearing a brown wallet. The reason for the surprise was that Jiang Chen remembered that he should not live in this manner. The 2 quickly ended the conversation, and the strange man turned around and left very neatly. When he turned around, he noticed Jiang Chen and Aisha, but he just glanced at Jiang Chen and walked away silently. Although it was just a quick glance, Jiang Chen still felt something very uncomfortable from him. How to say it? There was a faint smell of gunpowder. Seeing Jiang Chen, Carmen's eyes lit up, and she immediately walked forward with a smile. Are you ready to leave? Yes, I plan to take a tour of Munich today and go back tomorrow. Jiang Chen smiled. By the way, what time is your flight tomorrow? 9 in the morning. Is there any problem? Of course not. I wish you a good time. Carmen smiled, paused, and then added, try to come back as soon as possible. Without too much greeting, Carmen said that he had something to deal with, so he said goodbye. Slavs. At this time, Aisha suddenly said, huh. Jiang Chen looked at her in confusion. The man just now was a mercenary HMM. Before Aisha finished speaking, Jiang Chen put his hand on her head. Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she looked at Jiang Chen in confusion. Don't think too much today. It's a rare trip, Jiang Chen said with a smile, gently touching her hair. Feeling the warmth on her head, Aisha lowered her head embarrassedly and hummed softly. The Rothschild family was obviously planning something, but it shouldn't be against him. The more powerful people are, the more they cherish their feathers. Not to mention that Jiang Chen and Luke reached an agreement the day before yesterday. Even if Jiang Chen insisted on standing on the opposite side of mining giants such as Vale and BHP Group, they would not take action in Germany. Since it has nothing to do with him, Jiang Chen doesn't need to care so much. But Carmen's words about coming back early in the evening are very intriguing. What will happen in the evening? Compared with the bustle of the past few days, the streets of Munich today seem particularly quiet. It is clearly daytime, but there are few pedestrians on the street. Although many shops are open for business, there are few people inside. This situation did not improve until they got closer to the city center. After parking the car at the entrance of the pedestrian street, Jiang Chen held Aisha's hand and walked on the street. He could smell something unusual. However, he didn't take it seriously because he was leaving tomorrow. The solemn atmosphere on the street did not affect their date. Aisha held Jiang Chen's arm all the way. From the slightly curved corners of her mouth, Jiang Chen could see that she was very happy. The two of them shuttled through the shopping malls in Munich all morning and bought a lot of clothes. As for the language problem, there was no need to worry about it. Jiang Chen installed an instant translation software on his mobile phone. At noon, Jiang Chen took Aisha to a random Western restaurant, sat by the window, and ordered 2 steaks and cold drinks from the waiter. The violin in the restaurant sounded beautiful. Perhaps because of the atmosphere, Aisha seemed very shy. The two enjoyed lunch while exchanging opinions on the afternoon itinerary. Halfway through the meal, 2 men suddenly sat down at the table next to them. Judging from their clothes, they should be white-collar workers working in a nearby office building. After hearing their conversation, Jiang Chen learned that a protest against the refugee crisis took place in front of the Munich Opera House yesterday. I'm afraid these days won't be peaceful. Yeah. The man with short hair sighed. How did yesterday's demonstration end? The mayor said that he would put pressure on the parliament and consider passing a bill to limit the influx of refugees. He also said these words last month, but what was the result? This damn humanitarianism. Why don't those locusts roll away to other countries? Damn. Jiang Chen reached out and pressed the screen of his mobile phone on the desktop, turning off the translation software that was flashing text, and looked at Aisha with some concern. Seeing that there was no sad expression on her face, he breathed a sigh of relief. It's okay. As if she noticed the concern in Jiang Chen's eyes, Aisha smiled softly. Are you really okay? Yeah. Aisha nodded and played with the cherry tomatoes on the iron plate with the fork in her hand. Because there's nothing we can do about it. As dusk gradually deepened, the dome of the opera house was stained with a layer of golden color. The parade team holding signs strode forward. Yesterday's demonstration was just a warning, and today's event was the highlight. If the authorities continue to use that ambiguous rhetoric to fool people, the citizens of Bavaria will use actions to tell the federal parliament that they are dissatisfied with the authorities' decisions. Today is the day for the diplomatic meeting between the German president and the Austrian president. Presumably, even those who are in high positions will do something to appease public opinion out of consideration for their face. However, the marchers obviously misjudge the situation. Not everyone is extreme or visionary. The protesters standing at the door of the opera house are less than 1% of the total population of Munich citizens. At least for now, the Virgin Mary still has the upper hand, and those who sympathize with the refugees are still greater than those who hate them. Before the diplomatic motorcades of the two presidents arrived, fully armed police used tear gas to peacefully disperse the demonstrators and detain the leaders, and the chaos soon ended. In order to ensure safety, Germany even dispatched the 9th Brigade of the Border Guard to maintain order, commonly known as the GSG-9 Special Forces. The entire opera house was as solid as an iron barrel. Soon, 10 black Mercedes-Benz cars stopped at the door of the opera house. A square-faced middle-aged man and a tall and thin middle-aged man walked out of 2 cars at the same time, walked in and shook hands with the media reporters, and walked into the opera house side by side with laughter. German President Joachim Gaudet and Austrian President Ines Feller. Following behind the two were German Vice-Chancellor and Federal Minister of Economic Affairs and Energy Evelyn Gistwit and Austrian Vice-Chancellor and Minister of Finance. Such a high-level meeting between the two governments is the first this year. In the afternoon meeting, the two sides have reached a consensus on economic cooperation and the increasingly serious refugee problem. Tonight, watching the performance at the Opera House together was to consolidate the diplomatic achievements of the afternoon. At the same time, in the Empire Hotel, 3 streets away from the Opera House, Carmen was standing in front of the French window of the presidential suite on the top floor, holding a glass of red wine and quietly looking at the golden dome of the Opera House. The door behind him opened, and Johnson walked behind him. The actors are in place. Hearing this, Carmen's mouth curled up. Great. Then, the show begins. He raised his hand with the wine glass in it, and gently clinked his glass with the shadow of the opera house on the French window. Chapter 519. The performance officially begins. The opera house was crowded with people. In addition to the presidents of the 2 countries and government officials, ordinary Germans and business elites who were invited to visit the opera also watched the performance. Sitting in the special seat, Sim Gold looked down at the dark figures under the window, and a smile rose from the corner of his mouth. Germany has a parliamentary system. Although the federal president represents Germany both internally and externally, the real power lies in the parliament and the prime minister appointed by the parliament. The president's main responsibility in domestic affairs is to sign and publish the prime minister passed by the Bundestag and the Bundesrat, as well as the laws and decrees signed by the federal government ministers, but he has no veto over them. The prime minister is the head of government, and he is only the head of state. Even though he is the president, to be honest, he has only experienced a little bit of power when he attends diplomatic meetings. The lights came on, and with the light rise of the button, melodious music floated from the stage, and the faces of the audience showed intoxicated expressions. Today's performance is the Comine Orchestra from Vienna, and both the performance level and the repertoire are world class. Vice Prime Minister Evelyn Gistwit, who was sitting behind Sim, looked up at the wall clock, reached out and pulled the tie around his neck, and leaned close to the president's ear. "Mr. Sim, I have another appointment later. Can you stay here alone?" Sim frowned slightly. He was very upset that the parliament had excluded him. "Appointment? What appointment? How come I didn't know? It's a private one. My alma mater is holding a lecture, and I have reserved a front row seat before." Hearing that it was a private one, Sim's brows relaxed, and he coughed lightly, and said in a presidential manner, "Then you go, leave this to me." After getting permission, Evelyn apologized to the Austrian president and vice prime minister, and left immediately. After leaving the door, the moment he stepped out of the opera house, he was relieved. "Go to the University of Munich. Hurry up, the party will start in 10 minutes. After leaving the theater, Evelyn looked around at the security guards, and said to the secretary who came over, there was a huge crowd outside the chapel in the west of the University of Munich. Although it was a party for Chinese students, when they heard that Jiang Chen, the chief designer of Future Man 1.0 and chairman of Future Man International, would attend the party and give a speech at the opening ceremony, it was clear that more than just students would come. It's really a bother for you to make such a sudden request. We really didn't expect so many people." Standing in the chapel, Chen Yukio kept thanking Jiang Chen. "It's okay. I'm also very honored to be invited by you." Jiang Chen smiled. After receiving Jiang Chen's affirmation, Chen Yukio's face showed a relieved smile. Looking at the dark crowd outside the church, Aisha's expression seemed a little nervous. "Don't you worry about safety issues? What if there is something in the audience? Don't worry." Looking at the nervous Aisha, Jiang Chen said with a smile. 4 starring trade bodyguards were already standing in the 4 corners of the venue. He was also wearing a carbon nano bulletproof vest, and with Asia's support, he was not worried about any accidents. The church bells rang, and the 6 o'clock bell rang. Members of the Mutual Aid Association, school leaders, and special guest Jiang Chen entered the venue one after another. After the host exchanged a few pleasantries on the stage, he immediately handed the topic and microphone to Jiang Chen. Holding the microphone, Jiang Chen calmly stood on the podium. The audience was crowded, and the entire lawn was filled with eager listeners. People in the back row even stood on their own benches, which showed the enthusiasm of the people. He had faced similar scenes countless times, and no matter how many people there were, it would not cause much fluctuation in his mood. I'm surprised that there are so many listeners in the audience. Originally, I was just invited by the president to say a few words at the International Student Party, but now it seems that I can't just fool around, Jiang Chen said, frowning at the audience. Listening to the friendly laughter and applause from the audience, he waited for a moment and then spoke. I'm afraid everyone here has a higher education than me. I won't say much about professional knowledge. Your Professor Graham probably knows much more than me, and many of your credits are in his hands. Seeing Jiang Chen mention his name, Professor Graham showed a surprised expression, and then smiled at Jiang Chen in a friendly way. It has become a consensus in the industry that Futureman Technology has replaced IBM as the leader in the application of artificial intelligence technology. Being remembered by the chief designer of Futureman 1.0 is a strange affirmation of his ability. Then let's talk about something you are interested in today. Jiang Chen paused, kept it a secret, smiled and waved the unidentified mobile phone in his hand to the audience, and then put it on the lecture table. Technology. Just as the audience was waiting for Jiang Chen's next words, a shocking scene happened. The faint blue light particles rose from the position of the mobile phone camera, and the two three-dimensional light screens were like real existences, rolling and flying to Jiang Chen's side and hovering. Jiang Chen opened his hands and gently lifted the two screens. The audience was stunned, and even forgot to applaud. Both the president of the University of Munich and the gray-haired Professor Grimm were stunned by this sci-fi scene. It's not that they haven't seen holographic projection technology before, but many people have never seen holographic projection technology that can interact with light and shadow. And this is not the key point. It's just a palm-sized mobile phone that realizes all the functions. Gradually, the audience began to make noise and finally turned into excited cheers and whistles. The media wandering outside the venue cheered, and the reporters vented their shock to the camera. How does technology change our lives? Looking at the shocked eyes of the audience, Jiang Chen smiled and said in Chinese. The virtual screens on both sides translated his words into standard English and German in real time. There were exclamations from the audience, but at this moment, people could no longer express their shock further because the previous scene had already vented their surprise. At this moment, everyone's mind was circling with the same question. How did the technology of the future people do it? Exclamation mark. Science is changing our lives in this way. Jiang Chen knew that with his knowledge, it was impossible to leave a deep impression on these college students with just a few words. But technology could. For these young people, advanced technology may leave a more shocking impression in their hearts than money. He believed that there must be people in the audience taking pictures, and his speech today will definitely be posted online for more people to watch. As a recruitment advertisement for future technology, this mobile phone is Yao's masterpiece. In addition to the functions that a smartphone should have, it also has a holographic computer control component implanted. Although the functions he used are the simplest capabilities of the holographic computer, it is still no problem to bluff these unworldly modern people. I believe you have many questions, such as what is so special about my mobile phone, and how did Future Group make such a stunning product? Of course, please allow me to keep you in suspense here, because this is not a product launch conference of future technology, and the smartphone in my hand is still in the concept stage. Maybe it will be available to you in 2 or 3 years. The emergence of each epoch-making technology can bring subversive changes to our daily lives. Just like the steam engine 2 centuries ago, the internal combustion engine a century ago, the computer at the end of the last century, and the smartphone that everyone has in their pockets now. I emphasize the importance of science and technology again, not because our current investment in Future Group is all concentrated in these cutting-edge technology fields, but because it concerns the future of each of us. Standing on the stage, Jiang Chen passionately and freely used his eloquence to depict the blueprint of the future. From virtual reality to the connection between virtual and reality, from new energy vehicles to magnetic levitation in science fiction. The audience was shocked by the technology he demonstrated, so much so that, when they heard Jiang Chen's interpretation of the future, they could not raise any objections in their hearts. The church struck 7 o'clock, and an hour passed unnoticed, but the people present did not feel the passage of time at all. When Jiang Chen described the future, the scene he saw in the virtual reality appeared in his mind unconsciously. Perhaps because he had really seen it, what he said was particularly real, and the listeners also heard it particularly clearly. When the closing remarks fell, there was overwhelming applause. Facing the applause, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. He knew that his effect had been achieved. In any case, the name Future Man has left a deep enough impression in the hearts of these students. These people will all be talents who graduated from top universities in the future, and they will also be the source of talent for Future Man Group. Even if Jiang Chen can bring back advanced technology from the future, these technologies still need people to digest them. In a short time, is this really possible? The students in the audience couldn't help asking. Without paying attention to his abrupt remarks, Jiang Chen looked at him and smiled. I don't know whether it will be a short or long time, but with your participation, this time will definitely be shortened a lot. The speaker sat back with a red face. Even though it was just a casual remark, it still gave him great encouragement. Of course, as for how he will develop in the future, it is no longer something Jiang Chen can predict. He returned the microphone to Chen Yukio, who had been waiting for a long time. Looking at the expression on her face, she seemed a little reluctant when she took the microphone. As the organizer of the evening party, the International Students Mutual Aid Association was eager for Jiang Chen to speak for a while longer. Stepping down from the stage, Jiang Chen walked towards the small church that served as the backstage of the evening party. But at this moment, a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes walked towards him and stretched out his right hand with a smile. Behind him were two bodyguards who looked strong and powerful, and a secretary carrying a briefcase. Just from this style, one could see that he was an extraordinary person. A very good speech. Thank you for the compliment. May I ask who you are? Jiang Chen shook his hand. Evelyn Gistowit, Vice Chancellor and Minister of Economic Affairs and Energy of the Federal Republic of Germany. Evelyn cleared his throat and smiled friendly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 520, Tragedy at the Munich Theater. The church struck 7 o'clock. The opera house, 2 streets away from the University of Munich, was filled with melodious symphonies. The Comene Orchestra from Vienna, Austria, presented an exquisite performance to the audience. Led by the conductor, all the musicians bowed to the audience. During the intermission, Sim, who was sitting in the special seats of the opera house, chatted happily with the president of Austria. It was an excellent performance. Evelyn will definitely regret leaving the stage early. Heinzfella smiled very gentlemanly. I will tell the leader of the Comene Orchestra for you. They will surely be honored to receive praise from the German president. By the way, what is the next performance? The opera Turandot, a masterpiece by the famous Italian composer Giacomo Puccini, will be performed by the Berlin National Orchestra. You can look forward to it. Sim crossed his legs and teased sideways. The curtain was opened again, and the bonfire lit up the stage. To the sound of the low horn-like music, actors dressed as nomads filed out from behind the scenes. The beautiful and cold Yuan dynasty Princess Turandot solemnly ordered her people that, if there was a man who could guess her 3 riddles, she would marry him. Countless admirers fell under the butcher knife of the officers and soldiers. Under the lingering smoke, the chaotic atmosphere was created vividly. At this time, a young man wearing a black armor and a black scarf on his face, walked onto the stage slowly with a violin. Sim, who was originally immersed in the opera, frowned slightly. He didn't remember that there was such a violinist in Tirandot. On the stage, 2 officers and soldiers came forward and held him with their swords and guns, just like holding other martyrs. Looking at this young man, Tirandot's frozen face was slightly surprised. She didn't remember such an episode in the plot. The masked young man smiled at the extras, opened the violin case, and then calmly took out the MP7 submachine gun hidden in the case. Before anyone could react, he shot down the officers and soldiers in front of him with 2 shots, and shouted the slogan of Holy War, and la la. At the same time, he pulled the trigger with a grin towards the audience. Blood flew in the air. The shrill screams overwhelmed the explosion of bullets. Caught off guard, the audience in the front row were immediately swept down by the bullets. The sonata of the opera came to an abrupt end, and the actors ran backstage in fear and rushed to the safe passage. Then they bumped into another terrorist who was grinning with the bolt pulled. The opera house was in chaos. The man left his female companion, and the woman threw away her high heels. When everyone rushed to the exit, a brave man stood up and protected the children and women behind him, but he soon died under the attacker's gun. Sim, who was sitting in the special seat, got under the table very simply. The bodyguards standing next to the 2 presidents immediately pulled out their pistols and guarded the door of the room. Damn, what's going on? Is there a terrorist attack response exercise in the performance? Hiding behind the sofa, Heen said palely. This joke is not funny at all. Don't worry, the German security forces are outside. Although Sim's face was also ugly, he had calmed down at this moment. As the president, although he did not have much decision-making power, he still knew the money the Ministry of Defense spent on anti-terrorism every year. The people of the 9th Battalion of the Border Guard are the elite among the elites in the world. Facing a few terrorists is nothing. Just as the 2 presidents and a vice prime minister were waiting for rescue, the outside was already in chaos. The Munich Opera House was attacked by terrorists, with a total of 6 gunmen. Repeat, Munich Opera House. The police and special forces deployed outside the opera house quickly broke into the theater and exchanged fire with the terrorists. Smoke alarms rang loudly, gunshots were heard, and the scene was extremely chaotic. Fortunately, the 9th Battalion of the German Border Guard was present. They were the elite of the entire Germany. Unfortunately, the other side held the staff and actors of the opera house hostage. Even the 9th Battalion had to be cautious. Nolson, what are your people waiting for? There are only 6 of them. Rush in. Casper, who rushed to the scene, grabbed the intercom and command, and did not care about the wig that was blown away in front of the media, and yelled into the intercom. Sir, but they held the crew of the opera house hostage crouching behind the bunker. Nolson calmly replied to his superior. Idiot, I give you 2 minutes to break in. But, sir, there are 57 hostages inside. No buts, they are terrorists, and our president is inside. The president of Austria is also inside. Attack, now. Got it. After taking a deep breath, Nolson clenched his fist to his companion, then swung it down heavily, making an attack gesture. At this point, there is nothing to worry about. Even if all 57 hostages die, the presidents of the 2 countries must be rescued. The attack begins. On the lawn in front of the chapel of Munich University, the student party was still going on. However, with Jiang Chen's exit, the college students other than the Chinese students gradually began to leave. When the students and reporters who were not related to the party left, the lawn suddenly became much emptier. At this moment, at the side door of the chapel, Jiang Chen released Evelyn's hand and looked at him with an inquiring look. Nice to meet you, Mr. Vice Prime Minister. Do you have any questions? No problem. I was just shocked by the future vision in Mr. Jiang Chen's speech and couldn't help but want to communicate with you. I'm attending this party tonight as a graduate of the University of Munich. Please call me Evelyn. Evelyn smiled friendly. The German Vice Prime Minister is very talkative, and Jiang Chen is also happy to make friends with these government officials, so he started chatting with him. The science-born Vice Prime Minister showed great interest in the VR and AR technologies mentioned in Jiang Chen's speech, as well as the pure electric vehicle field that future group is about to enter. Just as the 2 were talking about investment-related matters, the secretary standing behind him answered a phone call, and suddenly his face changed drastically. After putting away the phone, he quickly walked to Evelyn's side and whispered a few words. Hearing the secretary's whisper, Evelyn's face changed, and he looked at Jiang Chen apologetically. Unfortunately, our conversation has to end here. There is a small situation outside. It's okay. Business is more important. Jiang Chen smiled. Watching Evelyn and the others leave, Jiang Chen frowned slightly. Although he didn't understand German, he could hear something unusual from the bodyguard's whisper to Evelyn. Recalling Carmen's words to him in the morning to come back early, he had an ominous premonition that lingered in his heart. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Jiang Chen?" At this moment, some broken Chinese came from behind him. Jiang Chen turned around and looked at the tall and thin man who was walking towards him. His messy curly hair was a little greasy under the light, and the dark under his eyelids was not sure whether it was deep eye sockets or eye bags. Except for the enthusiasm flashing in his pupils, the whole person looked very listless. "Yes, you are. Amos Kimberly, PhD from the University of Munich." The man smiled shyly, revealing his full white teeth, and stretched out his hand to shake Jiang Chen's hand. "Well, regarding the classification of primary, intermediate, and advanced artificial intelligence that you mentioned in your speech, can I ask in detail? Why are the 3 stages of logical response, self-compilation, and emotion used as the classification standards for artificial intelligence? Can you please explain in detail? Did I mention it?" Jiang Chen asked in surprise. Amos nodded affirmatively. He was sure that he did not miss a word. Sweat. Did I go too far in my impromptu speech? Looking at the eager expression on Amos's face, Jiang Chen couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Most of the current artificial intelligence programs remain at the logical response level. Whether it is IBM or Future Group, the application of artificial intelligence remains at this level. The program responds logically according to the logical rules set by humans. This is primary artificial intelligence, and it is also the safest artificial intelligence. I cannot agree with your point of view. In the cutting-edge field of science and technology, there are already many research results that can complete the self-compilation function you proposed, and can even simulate human emotions. Amos raised an objection. Jiang Chen thought for a moment and spoke. "It's normal for you to have objections. Standards are set by humans. But I have to correct you here. The self-compilation I mentioned is not the self-compilation in a broad sense. How should I put it? You can understand it as thinking. It is not thinking for the purpose of serving humans and completing tasks set by humans, but thinking like you and I are doing now. Are you sure that the current technology can do it?" Facing Jiang Chen's question, Amos was obviously stunned and fell into deep thought. After a long time, he suddenly asked, "Then did you do it?" Jiang Chen sighed and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Amos, these are corporate secrets. I'm sorry I can't tell you more." As he said that, facing Amos's disappointed expression, Jiang Chen paused, smiled, took out a business card from his pocket, and handed it to him. "If you are interested, you can join us. We can't teach you all our technology for free, but if you are willing to share your knowledge for our ideals, we welcome you to join us." After saying that, Jiang Chen turned around and walked into the chapel without paying attention to the stunned expression on Amos's face. Chapter 521, The Blockade. Back in the chapel, Jiang Chen declined all media interviews, took Aisha to a black Mercedes-Benz, followed by a car with 4 bodyguards, and drove to the entrance of the university town. However, just as the two were about to leave the school gate, they were stopped by the police at the gate. When Jiang Chen rolled down the window and asked the security guard at the gate, he learned that the street had been under martial law and the surrounding area had been completely blocked. Jiang Chen noticed that the police's eyes stayed on Aisha's face for a long time. At this moment, a lot of people had surrounded the school gate to prevent accidents. The police began to assist the security guards in evacuating the crowd. From the armored vehicles driving outside and the helicopters whizzing overhead, Jiang Chen began to realize that the situation was a bit serious. He told Aisha to drive the car to the parking lot of the library, and Jiang Chen immediately unbuckled his seatbelt. Seeing Aisha also unbuckled her seatbelt and prepared to get out of the car, Jiang Chen immediately reached out and pressed her hand. "You stay in the car, I'll be back in a while. But, I'll check the situation outside, be obedient." Jiang Chen gently squeezed her hand to comfort her, and then got out of the car. His intuition told him that something serious might have happened outside, such as a terrorist attack. Aisha's identity was sensitive. Although she was now Jiang Chen's secretary and bodyguard, at this critical moment, it was hard to guarantee that the racist who had lost his mind would not do something extreme. So in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, it would be better for Aisha not to show up. Perhaps she read something in Jiang Chen's eyes. Aisha lowered her head with a somewhat lonely look. Sorry, I've caused you trouble. You don't need to apologize. Jiang Chen put his hands on the car door, looked at her seriously and said, just leave it to me. Aisha showed a relieved smile on her face. Okay. Instructing 2 bodyguards to stay in the car, Jiang Chen immediately rushed to the chapel with the other 2 bodyguards. However, when he arrived at the lawn in front of the chapel, the party had been disbanded. Standing at the square wooden table in front of the chapel, Chen Yuqiao, the president of the Mutual Aid Association, was facing the empty venue with tears in her eyes. Her original plan was to use Jiang Chen's speech at the party to hold an unprecedented Chinese student party. However, the reality was very helpless. Not long after Jiang Chen finished his speech, a terrorist attack occurred at the Munich Opera House, 2 streets away from the school. The German authorities not only dispatched the army, but also urgently announced the country to enter a state of emergency through the media and implemented martial law in Munich. Under such circumstances, the party naturally could not be held. What exactly happened outside? Jiang Chen walked to Chen Yuqiao and asked. Chen Yuqiao smiled bitterly, and before she could speak, the vice president standing next to her looked at Jiang Chen and said in a slightly apologetic tone, just 15 minutes ago, a terrorist attack occurred at the Munich Opera House and martial law has been imposed on the streets. Now the social platforms have been flooded with the attack. As she said, she helplessly showed the screen of her mobile phone. At this moment, the mobile phone in Jiang Chen's pocket rang. As soon as the call was connected, Zha Xiao's anxious voice came over immediately. When she learned that a terrorist attack had occurred in Germany, she immediately thought of Jiang Chen who was attending the Munich Motor Show in Germany. How is the situation over there? Are you okay? It seemed that the news of the attack had spread to the other side of the earth. Jiang Chen couldn't help but think of the terrorist attack that occurred in Paris, France at the beginning of the year. It seemed to be the same at that time, and the entire France blocked its borders for this. Judging from the situation outside, his flight might have to be delayed. Calm down, I'm fine. You know, I don't have such a literary hobby as watching opera. Jiang Chen tried to calm Zha Xiao's emotions in a relaxed tone. After a pause, he continued, but I think there seems to be a lot of noise outside. I'm afraid my flight back home will have to be delayed. Hearing the news that Jiang Chen was safe, Zha Xiao breathed a sigh of relief, and her hanging heart finally let go. I'm glad you're okay. You must be careful over there. Although he was confident that he would definitely be fine, Jiang Chen's heart still warmed when he heard Zha Xiao's concerned voice, and he said kindly, don't worry, I'm safe here. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen hesitated for a moment. First called the Singapore embassy in Germany and asked the embassy staff to help him find out the situation outside. Then, he called Carmen Rothschild. As soon as the call was connected, Carmen's voice came over. Good evening, my friend. Since you called at this time, I guess you must be outside now. At the University of Munich. Jiang Chen sighed. The University of Munich? Okay, I will arrange someone to pick you up right away. It will take about 2 hours. After all, it's not peaceful outside now. Carmen said. Jiang Chen wanted to ask a lot of questions, but in the end he held back. Although there was no direct evidence from Carmen's reaction in the morning and the calmness in his voice now, it was clear that the Rothschild family was related to the attack. But what Jiang Chen didn't understand was, what good would this do them? Could it be? Jiang Chen suddenly had a glimmer of enlightenment in his heart. Are you listening? Seeing that Jiang Chen didn't respond, Carmen asked in a confirming tone. Well, please. Jiang Chen paused for a moment and said. Nothing. I have a good relationship with Sheriff Ashmore. He will drive to pick you up later. I'm very sorry. Your flight tomorrow may have to be delayed. Carmen said in an apologetic tone. Will Germany block the border? Jiang Chen asked. 5 minutes ago, the federal parliament issued an emergency plan. The border will be blocked for 3 days. Carmen said. Jiang Chen gently pressed his left fist on the wall and cursed inwardly. What a disaster. That's right. Well, just park the 2 cars in the library garage. I will let them drive away tomorrow morning. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen saw Chen Yukio, the president of the Mutual Aid Association, walking towards him. I'm sorry that this happened. I can't leave the school now. If it's convenient for you, we can provide you with accommodation. Chen Yukio bowed apologetically and said, don't bother you. Someone will pick me up later. Jiang Chen smiled and signaled that she didn't need to apologize. Seeing Jiang Chen said so, Chen Yukio didn't insist. But just when Jiang Chen was about to leave, she stopped him with some trepidation. Although she had obtained Jiang Chen's phone number, it was through an irregular channel after all, and she called Jiang Chen through the landline of the Mutual Aid Association office. If possible, she hoped to take this opportunity to exchange phone numbers with Jiang Chen. Save it on a private mobile phone. Can I have your phone number? Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment and said with a smile, of course. Because there were still 2 hours, Jiang Chen did not go back to the library directly after leaving the chapel. He first called Zilei. When he learned that he was in the hospital, Jiang Chen breathed a sigh of relief. Jiang Chen was a little worried about this kid because no one had seen him since the party started. After learning that he was safe, Jiang Chen hung up the phone and walked towards the school gate. At this moment, the gate was still crowded. Although the school had dispersed most of the crowd with the help of the police, many non-school staff and students living outside were still gathered at the gate, clamoring to go home. When he reached the edge of the crowd, Jiang Chen learned the information outside from their ears. I heard that the refugees launched the terrorist attacks, and I knew those people were not good. Look at what they brought from the Middle East. Crime rate, garbage, and now terrorism. Those who allowed them in are crazy. I heard that Sim and the Austrian president are in there. I wonder what the situation is now. Quick, look at this tweet, 3 minutes ago. Oh. God, our president is dead. Someone whistled, aha, I bet that these guys from the Gulf are completely screwed this time. Someone roared indignantly, why did they do this? God, haven't we been kind enough to them? Others shook their heads coldly, who knows? You can never understand what those religious lunatics are thinking. We always give them tolerance, but they always seem to want more. Hearing this, Jiang Chen had a general understanding of the situation outside and turned to walk towards the library. The Munich Opera House suffered a terrorist attack. The German president died. All this is likely related to Rothschild. But why? Or what is he planning? At this moment, all the students in Munich University either returned to their dormitories or gathered at the school gate. There were no people on the path leading to the library, except for a faint light in the underground parking lot. The lights in the entire library building were off. The street lights stretched his shadow, wandering on this deserted path. Just as Jiang Chen buried his head in thought, a gunshot suddenly floated in the distance. Startled, Jiang Chen looked up outside the library building, in the direction of the underground parking lot. Chapter 522 I have to help. Inside the Imperial Hotel, Carmen put his phone on the table, picked up his wine glass, and walked back to the French window. It was dark outside the window. Looking at his own reflection in the French window and the street dotted with police lights, he grinned. The bright red wine swayed, adding a touch of cruelty to the smile. Armored vehicles loaded with special police flashed from one station to another, and helicopters circled low over Munich. The door of the presidential suite opened. Johnson, dressed in a black suit, walked in and closed the door gently. The actors have left the stage. Good. Carmen's fingers tapped the wine glass rhythmically, as if he was lost in some kind of thinking. Johnson, who was standing behind him, held his breath and waited for his order. Johnson straightened his chest and prepared to take the order. Yes. However, to his surprise, his boss did not give him any orders immediately, but spoke meaningfully. Munich is an interesting place. Carmen's words confused Johnson, and he looked at his boss inquiringly. As if she saw Johnson's confusion from the reflection of the French window, Carmen smiled gently. Johnson, you once served in the French Foreign Legion, right? Yes, boss. Johnson said in a deep voice. What is the closest landscape to hell you have ever seen? Carmen said softly. Johnson thought seriously about his boss's question and answered after a moment. In 2008, Haiti was in riots, and our platoon went to Haiti with the peacekeeping force. Their mission was to maintain local order, and our mission was to rescue French diplomats trapped in the embassy. When we left the city, we were attacked by the armed opposition. They were regular troops and regarded us as an international aid organization transporting food. There was no reason in the country that overthrew 15 presidents in 1972, and our commander was also decisive. There was no language communication. They opened fire first, and we immediately fought back. They blocked us, and we killed our way out. How many people died? Carmen asked lightly. Johnson shook his dark head. That operation is not in the archives. I only remember that many people fell at the scene. Neither of them took death to heart. But the face reflected in the red wine glass at this moment showed even more cruelty. Is that the hell you have seen? It's too small. Carmen grinned. Johnson shrugged. It is impossible for many people to die in modern wars. Really? Carmen said meaningfully, leaving the French window and placing the red wine on the precious mahogany table. This city is fortunate to witness history again. Johnson, remember what I said today? And the decision made by the Rothschild family today is to prevent the coming of hell. As you wish. Johnson nodded. In addition, you do something for me. Hearing that the boss had a task to order, Johnson immediately changed his expression to be serious and stood at attention. Please order. There is a fish that slipped through the net. You get rid of it for me. Who? Our respected Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Evelyn Justwit. Gunshots came from the direction of the library, a total of 3. Thinking that Aisha was still there, Jiang Chen felt something was wrong. While running towards the library's underground garage, he took out a Type 11 pistol from his storage space and put it in his pocket. The street lights stretched his shadow and he could no longer see any students on the path he ran. The public security in foreign countries is not as stable as that in China. Few people go out at night, not to mention that there is martial law outside. When he ran into the underground garage, he saw Aisha and 4 bodyguards standing next to 2 black Mercedes-Benz cars, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Did you hear gunshots in the garage just now? No, it should be in the library. Aisha shook her head and was obviously relieved to see Jiang Chen return safely. Please get back to the car. It's not safe outside. After saying that, Aisha stretched out her hand to Jiang Chen. Understanding the meaning of her firm eyes, Jiang Chen reached into his pocket, took out a Type 11 pistol and a silencer, and handed them to her. Because he didn't have a gun license, the weapons were all left with Jiang Chen. Aisha took the pistol and quickly installed the accessories on the Type 11 pistol, then put it in the pocket of her suit. Although there might not be a fight, since there was gunshot, it was safer to be prepared. But just as Jiang Chen was about to get in the car, a voice from not far away called him. Please wait a moment, Mr. Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen's hand stopped on the car door, and he saw a middle-aged man in a suit trotting towards him next to the elevator of the garage. Aisha put her hand in her arms to be on guard, and the other 4 bodyguards also stood in front of Jiang Chen, taking a defensive posture. With the help of the light of the underground garage, Jiang Chen saw the face clearly and immediately gestured to the bodyguards not to be nervous and let the man walk in front of him. Evelyn, the German Vice Chancellor, Jiang Chen had just shaken hands with him. Mr. Vice Chancellor, may I ask what you are doing? Because of his age and wearing leather shoes, the short distance of 100 meters was already a bit too much for him. After supporting his knees and adjusting his disordered breathing, Evelyn stood up and looked at Jiang Chen seriously. Although it's a bit presumptuous, please help me, Mr. Jiang Chen. Just as he said this, Jiang Chen noticed a trace of blood on the left shoulder of his suit, and the bodyguards who followed him were gone. Help you? Can you tell me what happened first? Jiang Chen hesitated when he said this. He was about to leave Germany and he didn't want to get into trouble. But the one who made the request was the German Vice Chancellor, and for various reasons, he couldn't refuse. It's too late to explain. Their people will be here soon. While saying this, Evelyn glanced at the elevator nervously. Please, take me away from here. Jiang Chen hesitated for only a second, and 4 dazzling car lights lit up at the entrance of the underground garage. Seeing this, Evelyn simply squatted on the ground with his head in his hands. 4 gunshots were heard one after another in the distance. Jiang Chen was startled by the whooshing sound beside his ear. Although he was wearing a carbon nano bulletproof vest, guns were no joke. 4 bodyguards rushed forward to act as human shields and surrounded Jiang Chen. Aisha simply opened the bulletproof door and pulled out the pistol in her arms to fight back. Because she was wearing sunglasses, the headlights did not cause serious interference to Aisha's vision. 2 bullets penetrated the car window and the driver's head without any suspense. One of the 2 vans that rushed over immediately broke down and crashed into the concrete pillar on the side of the road. Seeing Jiang Chen firing back, the driver of the other van turned the steering wheel sharply and rifted the car body sideways towards Jiang Chen. The militants wearing baseball caps and masks quickly got out of the car, leaned against the cover, and drew their guns to shoot. At this moment, Jiang Chen had no time to hesitate. When the gunshot rang out, even if he didn't want to help the German vice chancellor, he had to help. Turn on the radio shield. Don't just stand there. I'm wearing a bulletproof vest. Get behind the bunker and prepare to fight back. Got it. He opened the car door, grabbed Evelyn, who was curled up on the ground, and stuffed him into the back seat. Then he reached under the seat, took out a briefcase from the storage space in the shadow, and threw it out of the car. The starring trade bodyguard who had been leaning against the concrete pillar bunker took the briefcase and skillfully took out the pistol and magazine from it and threw the weapon to his comrade. The 4 bodyguards armed themselves within 3 seconds, loaded the bullets, and started to fight back. Fortunately, both sides used pistols, and Jiang Chen's side was obviously slightly better in terms of bullet penetration and ballistic stability. However, at this moment, the elevator door opened 100 meters behind Jiang Chen. The people upstairs in the library have caught up. Chapter 523 Evacuation from Munich. Cursing inwardly, Jiang Chen pulled out his pistol and prepared to get out of the car to fight. Speaking of fighting skills, the bodyguards present were probably no match for his boss. Seeing this, Evelyn hurriedly grabbed him. There are too many of them. We can't fight them head on. We have to leave here quickly. No, hold on here. Sheriff Ashmore will come here to pick me up in 2 hours. Damn, I almost forgot that there are police officers at the school gate. Jiang Chen cursed and took out his mobile phone from his pocket to call the police. Can't call the police. Wait, listen to me. They have someone in the police system. Evelyn hurriedly held Jiang Chen's hand. Jiang Chen was stunned, and his hand stopped moving. He looked at Evelyn with a slightly frowned look. I won't go against the entire country's police system for someone I only met once. If you want me to save you, please at least show your sincerity. Tell me, what is going on? Reading the trace of unkindness in Jiang Chen's eyes, Evelyn hesitated for a moment, but finally sighed. First of all, I apologize for dragging you into this without my permission. But I hope you can understand that I have no other choice. If you are willing to help me through this difficult time, you will gain the friendship of the entire German people. Bullets flew outside the car window, leaving spider web-like cracks on the bulletproof glass from time to time. Evelyn looked a little scared, but Jiang Chen did not see such an expression on his face. After hearing the confession of the deputy prime minister, he grinned. You seem to be a little arrogant. The entire German people. You are just a deputy prime minister. A deputy prime minister standing at the crossroads of history. Evelyn corrected in a serious tone. The militants who came out of the elevator formed a pincer attack on Jiang Chen's people. At this moment, the battle situation was extremely tense, but Jiang Chen's side still had the upper hand. Aisha's marksmanship was very good, and at least 6 militants had died under her gun. The strength of the starring trade bodyguards crouching behind the bunker was also good. They were all elites in the army. Although the strength shown by the other side is obviously not ordinary, they have not suffered any casualties under the protection of carbon nano bulletproof vests. At most, there are only a few holes in their suits. As time goes by, the firepower of the other side gradually becomes sparse. Putting the pistol back into his pocket, Jiang Chen leaned back in his seat and asked casually, "Who wants your life?" "Rothschild." Jiang Chen was obviously stunned for a moment, met Evelyn's serious gaze, and teased. then you should know that they are my allies. There are no permanent allies, whether in business or politics. Do you think your relationship is very close? Then I tell you, the people who came to assassinate me are the Willy Society. You should be familiar with the name of the Willy Society. Jiang Chen's pupils shrank slightly. Evelyn's words undoubtedly told him that there is a connection between Rothschild and the Willy Society. Although he had made such a guess before, there was no direct evidence to prove it. And for now, Carmen's attitude towards him is still friendly. But what surprised Jiang Chen even more was that Evelyn actually knew that he had a conflict with the people of the Willy Society. How do you prove it? BND, the German Federal Intelligence Service. Our people have been keeping a close eye on the economic activities of the Rothschild family in Germany and the infiltration of the Willy Society into Western Europe. According to the intelligence of our informants. How do you prove it? Jiang Chen interrupted him and repeated word by word. Taking a deep breath, Evelyn said, I can't prove it. No assassin would be stupid enough to leave mark on his body to prove his identity. The evidence of the connection between Rothschild and the Willy Society is also in the archives of the BND. But I swear to God that everything I said is true. Whether it is the friendship of the German Bundestag or the gratitude of the Rothschild family, the choice is yours. The gunfire outside the car window almost stopped. Aisha shot and killed 2 assassins who tried to escape. A total of 17 assassins were killed. Aisha opened the driver's door and looked at Jiang Chen sitting in the back seat with an inquiring look. Jiang Chen thought for 2 seconds and looked up at Evelyn. Tell me, how do you need me to help you? Evelyn was obviously relieved. Take me to Austria. Jiang Chen didn't know what the Rothschild family wanted to do, but his intuition told him that they were planning something extremely dangerous. He didn't know what impact this attack would have on Germany and even the whole of Europe. But if the final beneficiary was the Willy Club, he felt that he had to do something to stop those people who were causing trouble for him every now and then. What's more, if he did Evelyn a favor at this time, there might be a chance to use it in the future. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen nodded to Evelyn and agreed to help him and take him to Austria. He ordered the 4 bodyguards to drag the bodies into the elevator, and then Jiang Chen ordered them to use blood melting agent to remove the blood stains in the garage. While no one was paying attention, he moved all 17 bodies to the storage space, still using blood melting agent to wash off the blood stains. Jiang Chen pressed the button to the top floor and walked out of the elevator. It was really exciting to go against the most powerful family in Europe. However, the situation had not deteriorated to the point of direct confrontation, and Carmen should not know about the accident in the library. When the gunshot just sounded, Jiang Chen ordered the bodyguard to open the radio shielding, and the gunman who entered the basement should not be able to contact the outside world. Later, the 2 assassins who were about to escape were also shot dead by Aisha. Generally speaking, it was foolproof. How to handle the matter foolproof without making himself suspicious. This is what Jiang Chen will do next. There is only 1 hour left before Sheriff Ashmore arrives at the library. If he wants to help Evelyn without Rothschild's knowledge, he must create an accident within this hour. First, he took out his mobile phone and called Zilei, who was visiting his sister in the hospital. Help me hack into the intranet of the Munich Police Department. How confident are you? It's difficult. Something like this happened tonight. BND people will definitely enter the local police station to assist in the investigation. I only have a laptop at hand. It is almost impossible to complete the hacking under their noses. What if a supercomputer is added? Zilei, holding the mobile phone, was stunned, and then a touch of ecstasy appeared on his face. It can be done. If it is the computing power of a supercomputer, I will break it, even if it is the firewall of the Ministry of National Defense. Be careful, don't let anyone find you, and don't let anyone find the IP of the computer. After reporting the password, to obtain the authority to Zilei, Jiang Chen hung up the phone, and took out the mobile phone designed by Yao for him. The biggest secret weapon of Future Group is not the 3 nuclear peace messenger intercontinental ballistic missiles deployed on the seabed, but the civilian quantum computer that will serve as the server of the god-level continent that will be launched soon. Although its performance is not as good as the two experimental quantum computers deployed in shelter number 27, its terrifying computing power is not something that those supercomputers in the world can look down upon. The hardware startup efficiency of the quantum computer currently placed underground in Koro Island is only 1.1%, but even this 1.1% is enough to load nearly 2 million second test arena players around the world to access the game at the same time. Jiang Chen remotely controlled the quantum computer through his mobile phone and started 0.1% of the idle computing range to be allocated to Zilei. I believe that with his hacking skills and relying on the incredible computing power of quantum computers, it should not be difficult to break into the intranet of the Munich Police Department, even if the BND agents intervene. Then, Jiang Chen took out 4 high-energy bombs the size of cigarette boxes and handed them to Aisha. West building of the library. Aisha nodded without any hesitation, turned around and took the order. Then, Jiang Chen thought for a moment and called Chen Yukio again. When his call came, Chen Yukio was busy calling the cadres of the Mutual Aid Association with the phone book of Chinese students registered to confirm their safety one by one. At this moment, Munich has been under martial law, and the University of Munich has been temporarily closed. Many international students who are locked up outside the school are facing the test of safety issues. After all, with the problem of the refugee crisis, the security environment in Germany, not just in Germany, but in the whole of Europe, is very bad. Especially now that such a thing happened outside, it is hard to guarantee that there will not be looters who take advantage of the chaos to do something. Just after hanging up the call from the Chinese embassy, Chen Yukio had not put down the phone yet, and the phone rang again. When she saw the caller, her expression was obviously stunned. When she got the number, she didn't expect that Jiang Chen would call her personally. Hello. Chen Yukio answered the phone and put down what she was doing and walked out of the activity room. Are you interested in joining the future group? Jiang Chen's words made Chen Yukio fall into a brief stagnation, and then a happy expression appeared on her face, so much so that she almost bit her tongue when she spoke. The treatment of the future group is well known, and anyone can open up the prospects of future technology. The olive branch thrown by Jiang Chen is undoubtedly very tempting for her, a graduate who is about to leave the campus. Very interested. Very good. The European company will send you a work contract in 3 working days. Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. But before that, I need you to do something for me. After hanging up the phone, Aisha, who had placed the bomb, returned to the underground garage. Evelyn had been looking at Jiang Chen nervously since just now, and his actions made him feel more and more uneasy. What exactly are you planning to do? Muddy the waters. Looking at Evelyn, Jiang Chen smiled slightly. Chapter 524 Muddy Waters. In Munich Hospital, Zilei sat in the corner of the lounge with his notebook, his fingers quickly tapping the keyboard like after images. Looking at the lines of code flashing before his eyes, the expression on the boy's face gradually became fanatical. Being able to control a supercomputer as his own chicken is what all hackers dream of. Supercomputers are to hackers like artifacts are to game players. Although Jiang Chen only lent him this quantum computer temporarily, he felt the powerful power of controlling the world in just a moment. Holding the artifact, he was like a man in the world of 0 and 1. The password that ordinary computers take hours to crack only takes a few seconds to read in front of quantum computers. This is only 1% of the computing efficiency. Done. Unable to hide the excitement on his face, Zilei reached out and pulled off his hood, hiding his entire face in the shadow to avoid his expression attracting other people's attention. After 10 minutes of hard work, he successfully hacked into the police intranet through the server of a contractor who provided maintenance services to the Munich Police Department's alarm system as a springboard. Because the intrusion was very short, he did not attract anyone's attention. The screen flickered, and a map of Munich marked with red dots appeared on his computer screen. The red dots moving along the streets were the GPS coordinates of the police cars patrolling in the city of Munich. From the density of the red dots, it can be seen that the Munich police have dispatched all the vehicles they can and set up several checkpoints at the entrances and exits of the city. The mouse clicked twice at the location of the University of Munich, zooming in on the map of the patrol area. Zilei's eyes stopped on the 4 red dots at the school gate, and a smug smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Found you. Reaching out to press the microphone of the Bluetooth headset, Zilei clicked on the voice changer file, cleared his throat, and then pressed the call button. Do you really want to do this? Sitting in the back seat of the Mercedes-Benz with Jiang Chen, Evelyn looked at the red button on the phone screen and said with a wry smile. At this moment, the two Mercedes-Benz cars had left the underground garage and were parked one after the other on a small road next to a grove 500 meters away from the library. 4 bodyguards were in one car. Aisha, Jiang Chen and the Vice Prime Minister were in one car. Mr. Evelyn, you know, I'm risking offending Rothschild for you. If you don't show enough sincerity, how can I believe that you won't burn bridges after crossing the river? Jiang Chen said lightly. Rothschild must not be informed of his involvement in this matter. Evelyn's words are the key. Wearing a collar around the neck of a public figure is too obvious, and there is no condition for surgery to implant a slave chip here. Then the only way to ensure that he keeps his mouth shut is to drag him into the water. You only have half a minute to hesitate. But what Jiang Chen didn't expect was that Evelyn pressed the button. As soon as he said this, a flash of fire suddenly burst out from the library 500 meters away, followed by a loud bang. Debris flew. The entire west building slowly tilted and collapsed in the explosion, crushing the entire underground garage. God, it's really spectacular. Evelyn muttered to himself as he looked at the fire outside the window, after returning the phone to Jiang Chen. I'm surprised that you pressed the button without hesitation. Jiang Chen took the phone and gestured to Aisha, signaling her to start. I have no choice. Evelyn shrugged, and compared to the future of this country, a library building is nothing. What's more, there shouldn't be anyone in charge of library management at this time. Jiang Chen saw repentance on his face, but not a trace of regret. As a qualified politician, the deputy prime minister has all the qualities that a politician should have. Jiang Chen smiled and turned off the camera next to him. If others know that I pressed the button, my political career will be over. Evelyn sighed. Don't worry, as long as you don't betray me, no one will know who pressed the button. The sudden explosion boiled the entire University of Munich, and the library with billowing smoke was reflected in tens of thousands of terrified pupils. The riots came as expected. No one knows why the quiet university town has become the target of a terrorist attack. All they know is that it happened right next to them. People screamed and ran to escape from this university town, where terrorists had infiltrated. The police and school security guards stationed at the gate tried their best to calm people down and prevent them from rushing to the streets, but it was still useless in the face of the emotional crowd. The scene was extremely chaotic. The crowds rushing out of the school blocked the fire trucks and ambulances that wanted to enter the school. The police who stood guard at the school gate shouted into the walkie-talkie on their shoulders, reporting the situation at the University of Munich and requesting reinforcement from the headquarters. However, the police officer didn't know that he was not talking to the operator at the headquarters at this moment, but to Zilei, who hijacked the communication channel. We need reinforcement here. Damn it, those damn bastards launched a terrorist attack in Munich University. Please calm down, Officer Bix. Reinforcement are on the way. Please make sure to maintain order at the scene. Hurry up, we can't hold on here. There are at least tens of thousands of people. It's crazy Chinese students are leading the protest. You better hurry up. Officer Bix, who was stationed at the front line, hung up the phone rudely. Zilei, who was sitting in the corner of the hospital lounge, smiled. Keep waiting. Reinforcement will never come. Not only that, following Jiang Chen's instructions, the boy tapped on the keyboard and quietly tampered with the patrol route of police cars in Munich. At this time, Chinese students at the school gate were protesting against the Munich police for locking them up with terrorists. These timid students actually took the lead in making trouble, which really surprised the Munich police. As the largest group of international students, their protest was supported by other students. No one wanted to be locked in the same cage with terrorists. Facing a team of tens of thousands of people, the 20 policemen, even with their blast shields, still felt like a mantis trying to stop a car. Soon, the people in the university town broke through the blockade and fled to the street. The situation began to get out of control. Jiang Chen and others also took advantage of the chaos at the main gate and rushed out of the university town with more than 10 other students' private cars. Are you crazy? The hawk-nosed student union president found Chen Yukio and stared at her aggressively, saying, "Why don't you stop your people? If a safety accident occurs, why should I stop them?" Interrupting the student union president's words, Chen Yukio looked at him seriously. "We are exercising our legal rights, and we have the right to protest. Also, please pay attention to your wording. You have no right to order me. Our mutual aid association and your student union are not in a superior subordinate relationship." The hawk-nosed man looked at her in astonishment. He didn't expect Chen Yukio, who had always been easy to talk to suddenly act so tough. He opened and closed his mouth for a long time, saying okay several times in a row, but he couldn't make a complete sentence. Tonight, the whole of Munich is destined to be restless. Chapter 525 Suspicion. Zilei tampered with the patrol routes of police cars throughout the city, leaving Jiang Chen and others a safe passage to the southern suburbs of Munich. Because the whole city was under martial law, several major traffic arteries in the city were already seriously congested. For this reason, Zilei then hacked into the highway traffic system, paralyzed the traffic lights of several nearby main roads, and blocked the traffic flow away from Jiang Chen and others to avoid congestion on the escape route. The checkpoint 2 kilometers southeast of you has been evacuated, and I have issued instructions to them to change their posts. Since being recruited by Jiang Chen, he has not used his black technology so freely for a long time. Pick a few checkpoints in the North District and the West District to perform similar operations, so as not to be suspected of being too purposeful. Understood. Also, don't have too much fun. Understood. After hanging up Zilei's phone, Jiang Chen looked at Aisha through the rear view mirror in the car. "Aisha, is the positioning system in the car turned off?" "It has been removed," Aisha answered seriously, holding the steering wheel. "Very good." Jiang Chen made a silent gesture to Evelyn, then took out his cell phone and called Carmen Rothschild. "I need an explanation." Carmen looked at Johnson, a black man standing in front of him with his head down, not daring to breathe. Seeing that Johnson didn't speak, Carmen continued, "I have waited until now, and only waited for the news of a terrorist attack in the library of Munich University. Where is Evelyn? Is he dead or alive? This is not the result I want. What I want is that the Vice Chancellor must die in Munich, instead of appearing in the next Prime Minister election to oppose us. I'm very sorry." Johnson bowed his head, as if realizing that he was too excited. Carmen took a deep breath and restrained his emotions. "I don't want to hear your apology. I need an explanation. Our people exchanged fire with the Vice Chancellor's bodyguards at Munich University. What happened next?" "In the lobby on the first floor of the library, our people shot and killed the last 3 bodyguards around Evelyn. Evelyn fled into the library, and then our people lost contact." A drop of cold sweat ran across Johnson's forehead. "Lost contact, then there was an explosion." Carmen sighed and refilled his empty glass with red wine. "Do those idiots know what they have done?" Shaking the bright red wine, he looked at the handsome face reflected in the glass. The GPS signals of the 2 Mercedes-Benz cars were lost in the basement of the library, so it seemed that the 2 cars were buried under the ruins. This was difficult. He asked Jiang Chen to wait for someone to pick him up in the library garage, but he didn't expect that there was an explosion in the library. Anyone would suspect that this was a premeditated assassination, which would undoubtedly cause a rift in the relationship between the 2 parties. Intuition told him that Jiang Chen did not die in the explosion. Thinking of this, Carmen couldn't help but have a headache. It was completely an accident that Jiang Chen was involved, and he really couldn't think of how to explain this for a while. However, he would never have thought that this explosion was just directed and acted by Jiang Chen himself. Because Jiang Chen had no motive to do so, and he didn't have the prerequisite to carry explosives after coming from afar. Explosives that can blow up an entire building are not something you can just buy. At this moment, the conclusion that Carmen could only reconstruct was that Evelyn was hiding in the west building of the library, and the Willy gunman who searched in vain chose to blow up the entire building in order to make a quick decision. If it was the Willy Society, it would indeed have the ability to blow up a building. but this would not explain why the Willy gunman lost contact after the explosion. Unless someone else was responsible for the explosion, and their target was Jiang Chen, it was just a coincidence that it was unknown whether Jiang Chen was killed in the explosion, and the Willy gunmen who were sent by him to assassinate Evelyn were also buried alive. At this moment, Carmen's mobile phone on the table rang. Looking at the caller on the screen, his eyebrows twitched obviously. He hesitated for a moment, but finally picked up the phone. Without any preface, as soon as the call was connected, Jiang Chen's angry roar came from the other side. "Mr. Rothschild, I want to know what happened. If I hadn't been in the car at the time, if my bodyguard hadn't reacted quickly, if I hadn't been just 2 meters away from the garage door, I would have been buried alive. Please, please calm down, my friend." Carmen smiled bitterly and tried to calm Jiang Chen, but Jiang Chen, who had survived a disaster, obviously didn't listen to him. "Friend? Is this the Rothschild family's way of entertaining guests? Where are you now? I'll send someone to pick you up." "Haha, don't bother you. My trip to Germany ends early. I will leave Germany tonight, in my own way. I will take a plane back home tomorrow morning. I'm very sorry, my friend. Please believe me, I will give you a satisfactory explanation." Carmen closed her eyes and said politely, "I hope so." Jiang Chen hung up the phone. Carmen took a deep breath and put the phone on the table. "Boss, it's no use explaining anything now. Let's put it aside first. Besides, we have more important things to do right now than the relationship with future group." Carmen quickly adjusted her mood and said in a calm tone. Jiang Chen breathed a sigh of relief after hanging up Carmen's phone. He didn't know if the play he just performed successfully fooled the little fox of the Rothschild family, but he had done what he should do. The rest depends on luck. Germany has been blocked throughout the country, but it has only been 2 hours since the incident. The long border line cannot be completely blocked in such a short time. We will take a small road to pass the German-Austrian border. If nothing unexpected happens, we will not encounter too many obstacles. If we encounter a checkpoint, then break through. Fortunately, Jiang Chen and others did not encounter a checkpoint. They passed the Austrian-German border smoothly through a rural dirt road. Although they were a little nervous along the way, they managed to avoid it several times. 2 Mercedes-Benz cars stopped at the German-Austrian border, and everyone chose to abandon the cars and walk through the forest to cross the border. Jiang Chen deliberately lagged behind everyone and threw the 2 Mercedes-Benz cars into the storage space to erase the traces. When it was almost dawn that day, everyone finally walked out of the mountain road and arrived at a small town west of Scharnitz, Austria. "I'll take you here, and the rest of the way is up to you." After crossing the forest, Jiang Chen looked at Evelyn, who was sitting on the ground and panting, and said, "For a politician who sits in the office for a long time, this kind of outdoor sport of crossing mountains and ridges is still a bit difficult. No problem. Can I borrow 200 euros from you for the ride?" Evelyn said shamelessly. Jiang Chen took out a few bills from his pocket and threw them next to him. Evelyn, who was sitting on the ground, grinned and took the banknotes without hesitation. "Good luck to you. I hope you don't let my investment go to waste." "Don't worry." Seeing the seriousness in Evelyn's eyes, Jiang Chen nodded, turned around and called Aisha and the 4 bodyguards, and left here first. He had done everything he could. As for whether Evelyn could stop Rothschild's plan, it had nothing to do with him. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.